pledge, please. Please, the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces, for our first responders, and those unfortunate souls that passed during this past weekend's storms in multiple states. Thank you. Katie?
Public comment?
Yes, we do. Coach Stone,
Good evening. I'm Coach Tony Morrissey of Mine Hill Road, New Milford. I represent Brian Cody's Brothers and Sisters Foundation, and I'm here tonight to ensure the community is aware of the ongoing and rising concerns regarding the opioid epidemic. It's important that the community know that over the weekend we lost yet another resident to substance use disorder. Understand that you won't find this person listed on the New Milford overdose reports because this person was one of the far too many that have been shuffled out of town seeking services. This comes 2 years after I lost my son. This particular individual was a parent of two daughters who was desperately seeking assistance but was instead found dead at a homeless shelter in a different county. There are some who have minimized this epidemic in our community, and even a few that have tried to claim some sort of victory. But I'm here tonight to inform everyone that our community is not immune to this terrible epidemic. It continues, it's on the rise, and it's happening here. While having a community navigator is a great step in the right direction, indeed, no doubt whatsoever, and I thank the town of New Milford for installing someone as capable and as great as Justin Colmer. By far the greatest thing we've done since I started this activism. I want you to understand that that alone is not enough. It is not enough. We need to do much more, and we can. And it doesn't take all that much. Little simple things. I'm here tonight to ask that we double down on our claim that we are indeed a recovery-friendly community. I'm here tonight to ask that we invest in recovery, that we use the Recovery Act funds and future payment from pharma settlements in smart ways, such as find reliable safe harbors for people who are in the moment of crisis. People are told time and time again that there are no detox beds, that they have to wait 3, 4, 5 days. This is something Justin Colmer can't fix. I beg those at the New Milford Hospital to work with Mr. Bass and this town council to institute a safe harbor where folks can go and we can have medical professionals overseeing the people while they're waiting for a detox bed to open up. Other communities do this. My organization has made dozens of calls, crisis calls, bringing people to Hartford Hospital to do this. We shouldn't have to do that. I should be able to do that here in New Milford, in my hometown, where I pay taxes. And so do these people that we're losing. I'm here tonight to request that we provide sober living scholarship opportunities to individuals who have successfully completed their inpatient treatment program. We have multiple sober homes here in New Milford, and they're effective. They're great. I'm not going to name them, but you know who they are. We should be working out some sort of deal with them where when someone comes out of a recovery center, they don't get released to homelessness. They get released to a sober home at one of our local establishments, giving them a leg up on their recovery journey. I'm here tonight to request that we collaborate with job training coaches and work on creating recovery-friendly employment opportunities with local businesses. Hardest thing to do for a recovering person is to find a job and get themselves back on their own feet. Between a sober home scholarship, employment opportunities, and then assistance with low-income housing, that is the recipe for getting people back on their feet. We're not doing that. These are not bank-busting deals. There's Recovery Act funds that are available to us. If we harness those funds and invest in recovery, we can make a difference. We have lost dozens and dozens, a whole generation, some would say, of residents of New Milford. My son's peer group has been devastated by this epidemic. It's time to turn our attention there. Please, I'm begging you. My family begs you. The 2,500 people in my foundation, the grieving families, they beg you. Please get behind this and invest in recovery. I'm here tonight to let you know that my entire organization is here to support you. Whatever you need us to do, we will run it down. We are at your call. Just tell us what you need us to do. 2,500 people are at your disposal. Please make use of us. Explore our ideas. You may be a professional, but you haven't been through what we've been through. You haven't done what we've done. You haven't had to go through that pain and that agony. We have learned the hardest lessons, and we want to make sure that no other family goes through this.
Mr. Morrissey, 30 seconds.
I'm going to wrap up by saying that our community is watching. Can we please count on you? Please. Thank you very much. God bless. Happy holidays.
Well, thank you for your time. As a voter,
Sorry,
I'm,
could you state your name and address, please?
oh, excuse me, Eric Hansel, 4 Cambridge Circle, New Milford. As a voter, I'm here to talk about COVID and convey to you that myself and others are tired of seeing what started as a short-term crisis metastasize into a long-term campaign to erode our freedoms and to not be a crybaby, and to suggest that the town of New Milford might want to what the town of New Milford might want to consider doing about it. Last week, while reviewing the governor's Executive Order 13A mask mandate, I realized we've been without a representative state government for 22 months due to Lamont's constantly extending Emergency Powers Act. That's a long time. At some point, shouldn't an emergency end? So I began to question my understanding of what emergency was, so I looked it up in a dictionary. Here it is. Emergency, noun. A serious, unexpected, and often dangerous situation requiring immediate action. In a sentence, your quick response to an emergency could be a lifesaver. Yeah, no, my understanding of the word was correct. Emergency is not a long-term thing. This past summer, I was heartened to see New Milford hold the line against mask mandates in our town. It was wonderful going to those businesses, Pete. The outdoor activities, doubly so. Our recent election indicates that others felt the same way. Bit of a landslide. In keeping with that, I think it's time to redouble our efforts to push back on this exploited narrative when we can. I realize you can't do it all the time. We can only do our best. To do this, please be especially skeptical with regards to any pending actions or initiatives in the name of COVID safety. Insist on quantitative, not qualitative. Qualitative like for the greater good, which is a red flag, but solid facts, plans, and outcome metrics. You need to know what success will look like before implementing these plans, which even though you might be using grant money, that's still everyone's money. That's tax money. We're responsible to spend it responsibly. Don't be afraid to say no. The voters are here to support you. When an expert comes to inform of the latest variant, be the skeptic, not the student. It's not impolite to insist on data references. Ask probing questions. Ask if they have quantitative analysis of the data for review. Maybe even put together a committee for the purpose of reviewing these reports, if they can be supplied. Most of all, be wary of implementing anything that might have a recurring cost or is not in keeping with the United States Constitution. In closing, please act with knowledge and be fearless. Those who are invested in this co-opted crisis are not going to be happy. Pejoratives will be used. Your intelligence will be questioned. Hold the course. You know you're winning when you upset someone like that. This is the time. Continued tacit acceptance of our endless COVID mandates and needless precautions will only serve to support the crisis narrative and embolden the state to continue operating without our locally elected representation, and our freedoms will continue to erode. Now I gotta tell you, this past week, I was talking to my son. He's been out in Colorado working. For a year and a half, hasn't seen a fellow coworker. My niece was a ballerina. We went to go see the Nutcracker. Last minute, all the girls are wearing these masks, and you can see them trying to breathe through them. My great niece, second grader, has known nothing but going to school inside of a plexiglass box. We've created if you will, a Faucian dystopia that we're forcing our kids, the ones who are least likely to suffer any ill effects from this, no more than pneumonia. We are forcing them to live through this, and I think it's not going to end well, and we need to start doing our little part right here in this small town now. Thank you so much for your time.
What's this name? Is it
Christy, Charlie?
Hasty.
Hasty?
Hasty, H-A-S-T-E-Y.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Charlie Hasty, 16B Bennett Street. Okay. I'm here also to talk about the COVID crisis. I'm not going to be quite as eloquent as Eric was. I'm going to be a little bit blunt and to the point, just ask a series of questions of the town of New Milford. Recently posted was a position for a contact tracer, temporary. Then long-term temporary down at the bottom of the paragraph in the job description. A couple questions I have is why a contact tracer? Why the need now? We're 2 years into this thing. The beginning, yes, it was scary. There were things we didn't know, things we were warned about. The scary part's over. We know a lot about this now. And it isn't the crisis anymore. How's it paid for? Is this something that was put into the budget, planned for, that is going to be ongoing? Or is it something that has strings attached to it with conditions because it's federal or state money? With the contact tracer, what is next? We've seen throughout the country, throughout the world, a steady progression of erosion of our rights, of our privacy, with deeper and deeper mandates that are going to protect us. All of these orders have shown to prove that very little to none effect on the spread and transmission of this virus. We're going to have quarantine camps. Is that the next step? As they have in Australia, as they're talking about in Germany? Are we going to have re-education camps like they're talking about in England? I'd just like to ask New Milford if that is the direction that they want to head down. Thank you.
Mr. Michael M.J. Durkin.
Hello, my name is Michael M.J. Durkin, 7 Elbow Drive, ELBO, no W. Wanted to talk to the council about a conversation that I was privileged to have with our mayor back in October. And as we were coming into the election season, I was able to do an interview with Mayor Bass about the accomplishments of his administration the last 4 years. And I have to say that I was so impressed and amazed with the work that this town has done to help people in need. It made me incredibly proud to be a member of this community. The community care coordinator position, the work that the mayor did with the homeless population. Certainly, I'm sure there's more work to be done, but I wanted to commend the town council for the work that you've done. It's been an incredible help to the people in this town, and I can tell you that my own pastor from my church, Pastor Justin, said to me probably 2 years ago, he said, you know, working with the mayor's office, helping our community, getting them food, getting them energy through the food bank, through the energy bank, through the financial literacy program. He said, it is an incredible pleasure to work with the mayor's office and this town council. And I just wanted to let everybody know I'm very proud to be a member of this community. Thank you.
Miss Susan Zeifler.
Susan Zeitler, 8 Curtis Drive, Sherman. My one daughter goes to high school here. I just wanted to agree with Charlie. He said, what he said is that is the direction that's planned by the world globalists. This is an agenda that's happening, and I really wish more people would recognize it. This is about the children, and the babies are next. So I just wanted to say we have God-given rights to decide medical decisions for our own bodies and for that of our children. Those are not to be taken away by the government, a district, a business, even under an emergency, which means nothing when we're playing 1984 as the pandemic definition has been changed to fit the globalist narrative. This is no pandemic and there's no emergency. It is illegal under the EUA to mandate a non-FDA approved medical device or substance. This includes masks, tests, and vaccines that have a current treatment, which leads us as to why successful treatments have been silenced, vilified, and these include hydroxychloroquine plus zinc, ivermectin, budesonide. Instead, our country bought 500 million doses of remdesivir. We're the only country in the world that used it, and that's why we had the highest death rate for COVID. And it is killing people in the hospital, and they're still giving it in Danbury and all around the country. Remdesivir causes kidney as well as liver failure. It's a shame. They have to do this to keep the fear up and to keep the death rate up so that we continue this game. It's just to cause societal, economic, and population takedown. Lisa Morrissey has been asked to show us the science and she refuses. I don't know why we pay her. Why do we have someone in town that we're paying to just deliver us the message from the government? I went and saw Dr. Scott Atlas speak last week in Greenwich. He was the former advisor at the White House last year. He stated how there was no science, zero, behind any decisions made by Fauci or Birx. It's not a surprise, I mean, I already knew that, but it's nice to hear it. Show us the science, we're hurting our kids. We as adults, that they look up to us, we need to save their future. Because right now, if you look at the documents and look at the people at the World Economic Forum, Rockefeller Foundation, United Nations, the World Economic Forum says right there on their documents that this will continue until March of 2025. I feel that everyone sitting in a seat and in town making decisions for everyone else needs to know the world agenda. I've been following it for years, I'm aware of it. More people need to know, because that is why we are here. That is why we are ruining our country, harming our kids, and I really, I just feel like if you can't look at that and don't want to learn from people who want to help you learn, then move over and let someone else do your job. Thank you for all you do. You know, we just have to really stop playing the game and take care of ourselves. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to participate from the public? This is it. Thank you, sir. Katie?
We'll move on to item number 3. I move to accept the consent agenda, item number 3 is introduction of youth agency leadership representatives. Are they here this evening?
No, this is just to update the council.
Oh,
At our
sorry.
January
Right ahead.
meeting, I spoke with Jason O'Connor, our youth agency director, and the youth agency has a leadership council. I've been to a couple of them, very wonderful young men and women, going to be our future leaders. They give an update to the Board of Education. I've asked 2 of their delegates to come to the town council monthly and update the town council on youth and their needs.
Great.
And they're also going to be sitting with us as well, maybe in the back there, and going to learn a little bit about local government as well.
That's excellent, excellent. Future council people.
Will be.
Are they here, are there any here tonight?
No, they're going to be here January 10th for our
Okay.
January meeting.
Great. Okay, oh, Mary Jane.
Sorry to interrupt, but I'd like to make a motion to add an item to the agenda under the American Rescue Fund for discussion. And I would like to talk about what Mr. Morrissey, some of the suggestions that he made. So if we could have a discussion about that, and then I know it's, it's a process, and, we'll have to make a lot of considerations, but I would like to discuss it.
Is there a
Absolutely.
second?
Have a
I'll
second?
second.
Okay.
One of us.
Mary Jane, that would be under 9D, the ARPA discussions?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So we have a motion, this is just for discussion, which is in the discussion piece, and a second on adding funds for substance abuse.
Got it.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh,
Oh, do we want to, we're going to wait until,
yeah, when we're going to do it with all the ARPA funds?
yeah, right.
Yep.
Okay.
Is Mike actually on?
Number 6.
Mike, are you on?
D6.
No.
No. Okay.
All right.
So now, moving on to item
Okay.
number 4. Move to accept the consent agenda, items 3A and B.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just, I think there's a typo.
Okay.
On part A, prior minutes, it was the regular town council, not a special, on November 22.
Yep.
Just want to make sure we approve the right minutes.
So we have a,
On the
Amendment to
on
the
the
agenda?
22nd?
yep,
Did you say
instead of
it
say
was-
regular, town council should say special.
It says special, it's supposed to be
Yep.
regular.
It's supposed to be regular.
You gotcha. Okay, so we'll make that clerical change?
So you're just gonna strike special?
Yep,
Yep.
okay. As amended, then?
Mhm.
Well, it's really amendment to the agenda, so I don't know if it needs to be, anyway.
Could be a Scrivener's error, so.
That's right, yeah, clerical.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
abstain, I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Item number 5, I'd like to move to accept the appointment of Walter Bayer as an alternate to the Board of Finance, term to be December 13th, 2021 through January 31st, 2022. He's
Second.
replacing and taking a vacancy.
I want to thank former Councilman Bear. I'd ask him to serve on Board of Finance with his extensive experience here on the council. I think he'd be a great fit for our Board of Finance. Mary Jane?
So I don't want anybody to take, Walter especially, I don't want you to take this personally, but I will not be in support of this.
because this has come up before. We've asked the courtesy of you getting the nomination from the Democratic Town Committee, and I know you haven't done it in the past, and obviously it's still not happening, but I would ask that you consider.
So Mary Jane, I will consider that, but it's the right of the mayor. I can choose
I know you
either
can.
party.
I know that.
And I think Walter would be a great choice,
Well-
and we can vote on that now.
Okay, well, I will not be supporting
I'd like
it.
to just make one comment on that as well.
Absolutely.
And nothing personal against Walter Bear, who I adore, and thank for all of his service. But I think that we have to remember this is a deliberative, all these councils are deliberative bodies. And
Absolutely.
in order to have the minority view represented, I do feel that the protocol should be abided.
And you know, Hillary, I 100% agree with that, but I'm also waiting for an apology from the Democratic Town Committee for calling half of our residents Nazis. So I'm waiting to hear that apology. Am I gonna get one?
You show me where I called you a Nazi.
Oh, I'll bring it to next meeting, absolutely.
Okay.
They were in a lot of people's mailboxes.
So is
So
it,
I'll bring it to the next meeting.
I'm going to fully support Walter Bayer. Number one, because the gentleman has got more experience than most people in this room. Number two, I believe in his character and the hard work that he's put forth in this room. He should still be sitting here, but I know he will help the Board of Finance. And I'm going to support Walter now, and I hope his name comes back up in January, because I'm going to do it again.
Absolutely.
right,
Thank you, Walter. Thank you very
Katie?
much.
I'd also like to say that, all other comments aside, Walter does have a great amount of experience in many different levels of helping this town and municipal government and education. I don't think we could have a more well-rounded person join our Board of Finance than Walter. So
Thank
you
you,
have my
Katie.
support, Walter.
Hillary?
No, I think it's been said. I was just going to say that, it's not about the character or the experience of Mr. Baer. It's about having a minority representation on a board. So if we're going to, say that that doesn't matter and we don't want to hear the other party, then that's a different conversation. But it has nothing to do with character or experience of Mr. Baer. We're talking
So
about.
Hillary, I 100% agree. If you take a look, we have tremendous minority representation on all our boards and commissions. I make sure of that. But one thing I will not tolerate is I will not tolerate having a Democratic Town Committee leadership call half of our residents Nazis.
But
Not going to do it.
This is a different issue.
It's not a
What
different-
you're talking
it's not
about
a
is
di-
a different issue than what we're
It's-
talking about on the table
It's
right now.
not a different
You
issue.
know what, I think this conversation is inappropriate.
We're talking
totally
about what it is.
inappropriate.
The mailer was inappropriate.
Mr.
And
Mayor,
the fact that this spread around this
Excuse
community as one of the most disgusting things anybody's ever seen in the history of
Nobody
politics in the town of
called
Milford.
anybody
Maybe you
a
should go
Nazi.
back to your group and ask them to apologize to the 28,000 people that live here, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, independents, or they're the men from the moon. Nobody needed to see that in their mailboxes, Mary Jane. You know it, we all know it. It was a stunt. It was a stunt by a group of
Excuse
people
me.
who
I
have
think
created
you are being
activism in your party.
inappropriate as a sergeant
I've been
at
sitting on
arms.
this thing as long as you have,
You know.
Mary Jane, and I'll tell you something, the only difference between all of us for most of those years was about 2% over the budget. That's all we argued over. 2% of the budget. 6 years ago, anarchy came to town, and that anarchy got kicked out. Okay? But unfortunately, it continues within your group. It was an insult for Mr. Bayer not to be put back on this ballot. He is the minority representation for the Democratic Party on the Board of Finance now. Mr. Seda was he an independent or Republican?
Unaffiliated.
He was an unaffiliated. So you have your minority representation on there. It may not be coming from the Democratic Town Committee who called everybody a Nazi, but it is definitely definitely a minority representation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to say that Mr. Baer is a Democrat, so he is providing minority representation. And I would address Councilwoman Lundgren that unfortunately the DTC doesn't seem to really speak for many Democrats in this town, as evidenced by the results of the last election. So I think Mr. Mayor, the mayor in his purview, is putting the best person for the job, is appointing him, and he's doing the right thing. And I support it.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to call the question, please. This is enough.
Sal has a question. His hand up before you said that, I'm sorry.
I would like to support Mr. Bayer. He's been in this town for many, many years, served his community. both on the Republican and Democratic sides, just the people of New Milford. And to deny him this access to serve more, I think it's appalling. I think it's ridiculous. And there's nothing to ask about. He's the right person for the right job.
So we have a, as Thomas asked, we call the question. So before we do that,
Right.
let's just vote.
Okay?
Okay.
All those in favor of Mr. Bear serving on the Board of Finance?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Troublemaker.
Motion carries. Thank you, Walter. Thank you for serving on Board of Finance.
Okay, we do not have Dr. Levin with us this evening.
But I do
Mayor,
have
you have an update?
Do have an update from Mr. Levin. Talks about the pandemic. He gave his total cases at 50 million, deaths 800,000. He also states, however, as states and systems improve and reporting becomes more accurate, data is increasingly collected and reporting by the CDC. CDC now estimates that from February 2020 to September 2021, they're showing a total estimated total infections worldwide of 146,600,000, estimated symptomatic illnesses at 124 million, estimated hospitalizations at 7.5 million. They're talking about estimated total deaths at 921,000. He also talks about increasing infection. The new COVID-19 cases significantly increased this past week to 118,000 cases a day, about 15,000 more earlier this week. Deaths now averaging over 1,000 per day, up 60% from the prior week. 46 states reported an increase in new COVID cases for the week that ended Sunday, December 5th. Vermont had the largest jump with a 541% increase. West Virginia at 402, Missouri at 280, Rhode Island at 189, and Kansas at 147%. He also talks about the new developments preparing for new variants. As discussed in his last report, the virus continues to mutate. An escape variant, Omicron, has swept through several countries and is making inroads into the United States. In a report, which is here, which we'll be sending to the council because I got this a little bit earlier today, the date with this new variant, and they're talking about maybe new therapies as well. Also, he talks about the different vaccines. So the Pfizer vaccine provides a 95% effective protein against Delta, which drops to about 60% 5 months after the first doses. However, when a booster shot is provided, the effective rises back up to 95%. Then he also says, unfortunately, the Pfizer vaccine appears to be less effective against Omicron variant after 2 doses, but a 3rd dose drives the effectiveness up about 80% additionally. Data from the United Kingdom shows that mixing vaccines provides good protection against both variants, and also says that the AstraZeneca vaccine, followed by a Pfizer booster, which I don't believe we do AstraZeneca here, it can help with an additional 42% boost in protection. And that's pretty much what we have from Dr. Levy.
Okay.
Katie?
Item number 7, we'll have an update from Lisa Morrissey, our health director.
Lisa?
Does that report then go in the minutes, the whole report?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And then I got this a little bit earlier today, which I'll be sending out to the
Okay,
council.
great. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Good evening, council. Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Lisa.
I haven't seen your faces in a little while, and I apologize for that. Things have been a little bit crazy. So we have been submitting weekly COVID-19 reports, so hopefully you guys have been seeing those. Every Friday we do that update. So I'm not going to summarize everything that's in there. Instead, I'll take this time to really talk about some key points and what we're seeing in New Milford and in our community at large. So first and foremost, what we're seeing, our booster vaccinations are still lagging for people who are going to get boosted, which is fairly significant, and I think Dr. Levin also touched upon this as well. Without that booster, thank you. Without that booster, we're seeing more breakthrough cases in people who were previously vaccinated with either Johnson & Johnson or both doses of Moderna or Pfizer. So the booster is one piece. Secondarily, we're still seeing lower than we would like numbers of children between the ages of 5 and 11 and 12 to 17 that have also been vaccinated, and what we're seeing with that, and I'm sure our superintendent probably could speak to that for hours and hours and hours, increased cases in children under the age of 18. So just to give you an example, 88% of the cases that we saw in school-age children in the last week were all unvaccinated. And the remainder had incomplete vaccination series. So that has been driving some of our case rates. And I know I've talked about it before, but it's always worth mentioning that nothing happens in a bubble. So what we tend to see is when one household member gets COVID-19, it usually sweeps through the household, which has been particularly hard for our superintendents to really talk about with why are we seeing those types of cases. I know that a couple of weeks ago I got a phone call from the newspaper and they were like, well, they have 20 cases. I'm like, but that's not a lot of cases really when you think about it, because 4 of those cases were sibling groups. So for example, like one of the case clusters were 3 kids in the same household, and that's typically what we're seeing. We're not seeing spread from normal in-school activities. We're seeing spread that really is happening from extracurricular activities, and it's going home and then it's turning into a multi-generational party where it's the kids, then the parents, and then the grandparents. Unfortunately, I was really disappointed, and it was a really hard conversation that the mayor and I had to have over the last couple of weeks, that we started to see an increase in death rates here in New Milford, and primarily driven by, one, an outbreak that happened at a local long-term care facility, and secondarily to that, like I said, that generational effect where we're seeing that people in the households who were not vaccinated are still socializing with family members who might be partially vaccinated, meaning that they had their full series or they had one of the doses and they weren't boosted, and that's going through there. So again, I think it's worth mentioning that, we do know that the vaccines do work. We know that the masks are working when they're used appropriately. And so those are some of the pieces there that I thought would be worthwhile highlighting on that. We've had a couple of partnerships. As you know, we've been partnering with Nuance Health to provide vaccines, and more recently, we've also brought in Griffin Health to help with some of our staffing shortages. I'm hearing myself in stereo over there. And then in January, we'll be resuming our normal scheduling because we'll have more vaccinators coming in. We've been doing a recruitment campaign to try to get some more vaccinators come in, and also working with Nuance as well to help with that piece. So I think those are some of the major trends I think that I get asked about more often. I'm sure that you all have questions, so I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay.
I just wanted for you to mention, as I posted it myself today, that we have testing.
Oh, thank you. So that was a huge win. So at John Pettibone, we'll have testing 5 days a week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, we'll have testing there during the day and also in the evening. One of the pieces that I know that was very important to the mayor and to myself as well was that we wanted to ensure that after work that people could get tested also in the morning, because that's when a lot of times people are finding out. They find out late in the afternoon when the contact tracers are making phone calls to let them know that they had an exposure. So we wanted to ensure that that was happening. I think that'll also be a huge relief to a lot of our families, because PCR testing is the only testing that the schools can accept for negative tests as per the state regulations. So having that local provision to have that access right at John Pettibone, where so many of our families came for vaccinations, I think it's really a big win for us.
Tom?
Just, can you give us, is there still a schedule of vaccines being administered? So I didn't hear you mention that.
So this coming Saturday, we have clinics happening at John Pettibone. After that, we have to wait and see, because then we go into the holiday week. So the holiday week, we don't have a schedule. The schedule for January will be posted pretty soon.
Okay, so Saturday would be the...
8:30 to 12:30.
Great.
So they should go on,
The website.
Go online?
Yeah.
Don't.
www.milford.org.
Yeah, last week, and showed no appointments available.
We just added some more.
So
So what? And You know, and I feel like we've had this conversation so many times.
Yeah.
We've gotten so good at doing vaccines, and we've gotten so popular that literally as soon as we post appointments, they pretty much disappear. And really, what we have been really limited by is really our capacity to bring in vaccinators to do that. So that partnership with both of those hospital systems has helped with that. In regards to this clinic on Saturday, we do have a limited capacity for walk-ins, but as we saw last weekend, it does make the lines move a lot slower when we do have walk-ins, because they just don't have the same capacity. And it's something that we're seeing. It's not a problem that's specific to New Milford. It's all across the state. There just aren't enough healthcare workers to go around, and that really is making it harder to fulfill all of the missions of health and public health.
And Lisa, it was brought up here tonight and also in the public. We've talked about it a little bit before, but the need for a contact tracer now that we've been in for almost 2 years now, and then funding, how does that work?
Great question. So I won't mince words. I was smiling a little bit. So contact tracing is probably new for most people who were listening. Contact tracing is one of the oldest aspects of public health. We're talking going back to ancient Rome. So whenever there's an outbreak of disease, or a team of people have to figure out how it happened and how it spreads. So if you take COVID-19 off the table, any reportable illness, we're required to follow up to mitigate the spread of that disease. So it's not new with COVID-19. What it is that it's more burdensome. So I can tell you unequivocally, New Milford Department of Health has been doing contact tracing since March of 2020. What happens is that we have a high staff turnover. As you can imagine, you burn out really quickly. And I'll tell you on a personal note, as a person who has to call people, I've called people the day after they've lost someone. I've talked to people that have lost multiple people in their household. And when you're the person that's sitting in an office for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then we do this on the weekends too, on weekends, it takes an emotional toll on you. The PTSD effect is very real, and what happens is that we continuously have to replenish. So our public health nurse, myself, and the contact tracers, they're all engaged in an activity. But when we lose contact tracers, we do have to go back and recruit more. And as for the funding for that, you pay my salary, you pay for the public health nurse, we're doing contact tracing. As for the additional contact tracers that we hire, we are fortunate enough that there is grant funding available by the state of Connecticut to offset some of the costs with hiring additional people. But I think that I really can't understate the point that we are required by law to follow up on any reportable infectious disease, whether it's COVID-19, tuberculosis, HIV, it does not matter. It is part of the mission of public health. We are required by law to do that.
Any other questions?
When you say required, is it required by the state, by the government, or both?
Federal and state.
Okay.
Any reportable disease.
So you have to follow up, period.
We have to follow up. So if any of you have ever had the misfortune of having a foodborne illness, you may have had a phone call from someone at the health department. I know I've talked to several people in New Milford because they've had a foodborne illness before. It all falls under the same piece. So anything that's a reportable illness does require follow-up. The only thing that changes is who's responsible for the follow-up. So sometimes the CDC, the feds do it. Sometimes it's the state, and sometimes it's local government, and that's all delineated it's on the PD23, what's reportable and who's following up on it.
So what are the consequences if someone doesn't trace that person who's sick?
Well, first and foremost, if you have a health department that is neglecting to do the mandates of public health, the State Department of Public Health could step in and take over your health department. They could withhold funding to the municipality. There's a whole host of things that could happen when you don't follow the mandates of public health.
Thank you.
Mary Jane?
Lisa, I just want to say thank you for everything you've done for the town of New Milford. I have so much respect for you, for your education and your knowledge that you've shared with the community, and I'm sorry that you had to listen to some of the anti-science comments that were made tonight, but we all respect science.
Thank you for your positive comments, and thank you for volunteering.
Katie?
Thank you, and for listening to everything and sifting through the parts that that you know are not true. So as far as contact tracing goes, I'm glad you brought up how old a process it is and what it is. But to me, one of the most important parts about contact tracing is that you find out where, let's just say it was an outbreak of plague or measles. You find out where it started, and then you can tell people about it so that I stay away from Mr. Measles over here, or the bubonic plague over here, so that you know where it is, and you can, if needed, quarantine certain people in areas. I mean, in the old days, they would quarantine towns and cities and streets. So I think it's maybe a rudimentary way of doing it, but it certainly is needed. And if we didn't have it, I don't even want to think about what it'd be like if we weren't able to do it with this virus and every one of its variants. So thank you for sitting there and listening and having to take make those hard calls.
Well, it's a pleasure. We're very happy to be here to do that. And I have to say that the number of people who've also thanked us because they don't want to have to call their friends and family members to tell them that they tested positive. And because when we do it, it's anonymous. We just are calling to say that, you've recently been exposed, as opposed to you or anyone making the phone call, then, hey, I have COVID-19, I'm sorry, exposed. And, that's uncomfortable for people. No one wants to feel like that person. So it is a very valuable and needed service that we provide. Thank you.
And Liz, also, again, thank you for your work. I had the pleasure of meeting you as a volunteer at a clinic months ago, and I got to see you in action, and I was already impressed. I had not heard you speak yet at a town council meeting, and I just think that your commitment and your level of knowledge is quite something, and we're very fortunate to have you, and I do appreciate you. And I know you have a difficult job, and that you have to hear things, and just like you just said, you also have to have difficult conversations. And I think that's a unique person who can do that, and we're grateful.
Well, and thank you so much for volunteering, because you put in quite a few hours, if I recall correctly.
Any other questions for Lisa?
Thank you.
See you in a minute.
Item number 8, mayor's comments.
Just real brief, piggybacking on our health director, Lisa Morrissey's segments real quick as we continue to go through this pandemic. I can't thank, first of all, our citizenry as we continue to move through this. I can't thank our town employees, who I see each and every day work extremely hard. And that's on both sides, whether it be the town or the Board of Education side. Also can't thank our first responders, our medical community, everybody working together to get through this. And I get to see that each and every day, and we're blessed to have a community as we do. So thank you, everyone, for that. Secondly, a couple of events this past weekend. I want to thank the VFW for doing the Breakfast with Santa. It was great to see some of the young kids get an opportunity to be there. And the VFW continues to be a major supporter, as well as the American Legion of our veterans. Talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on this evening as well. We also had the New Milford Green Wave Youth Wrestling. They had their tournament this past weekend. It was great to see both the young men and young women in the tournament in wrestling, and it's great to see that wonderful endeavor that we have. We honored again, as we talked about before at our last meeting, had a lot of public compliments for our young ladies at their girls cross country success that they've had. So I want to thank them again. As far as the town itself, we continue with, and I'll talk a little bit more about our economic development. We continue to see growth in our activities here in New Milford. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when economic development comes forward as well. I know Greg and I have been talking a little bit about the budget process as that's beginning to start. I know Superintendent DeCorpo has also had, I believe, one module already that the public could talk about, and that was the capital items. She'll continue to move forward, and we'll be bringing about our recommendations towards the end of January. And also just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, as this will be our only meeting this month. And just wish everybody a safe and happy holiday, both Christmas and New Year's. Thank you, Katie.
Mayor. We'll move to item number 9, under the mayor, and this would be for discussion and possible action on the town of New Milford joining the Housatonic Valley Health District.
Thank you, Katie.
You'll be talking about.
Yep.
And
So
we all
just,
have a handout on that.
Yep, so everyone has their handout. Please, could we have everybody come up? So as the town council was apprised, I'm gonna wait for Lisa a little bit. As we're gearing that up, the town council back in, I believe it was August, right, Lisa? Was it August? Might have been around August. We talked about the Pomperog Health District losing their director, and Lisa was kind enough to help our neighbor communities with their health district. That being said, we saw a lot of synergies that the town of New Milford, if we could merge not only our health team with Pomperog, we could be way more effective in helping our citizenry both here, but also within this region and in the areas that they serve. So you'll see here a deck that we'll be talking about in a moment about how this would be beneficial, especially to New Milford, by partnering and being part of this health district. And as I'm sure Lisa will talk about before, is the state is really looking at, this is going to be the new model, especially for health departments, is to be more regional. And in this respect, we can be forward-thinking and be part of the solution, rather than at some point in time, whether it be 1 to 2 to 3 years from now, the state deciding for us where we're going to go. So if we could talk a little bit about the district. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. I'm Ann Newman. I am a nurse by trade. I am also chairman of the board of the Pomperog Health District. I have been chairman for the past 4 years. I have been on the board itself for 5, and I have been a nurse volunteer in the community for the past 20 years. My family and I live in Woodbury. My children go to school in Woodbury, and it's always been very important to me as a nurse to stay involved in the community in a public health aspect. So that's a little bit about me. I'll reiterate a little bit of what some of the town council said today about Lisa. I've been very privileged to work with her over the past 6 months since the retirement of our health director. She's been kind enough to step in and be our acting director. One of the things we quickly realized is that Lisa is very talented in public health, she's well-versed, and she is a leader amongst the state of Connecticut. What we also realized is that we have a lot of resources in the Pomperog Health District and a lot of programs, for which I'll share just quickly with you tonight, that we think will be a huge benefit for the towns, all 5 towns, if the merger goes through. Okay. Oh, there we go. So obviously part of this whole deck talks about the pre and post merger. I'll get to the points that I think are really important for tonight, but the deck you have in front of you. One of the things that we knew right away is that the financial aspects for the town of New Milford, and I'm going to include Washington in that because you do have Washington as part of your district. It's been a strain in staffing, it's a strain in financial resources in order to provide the services that the communities need. And I'm very proud to say we've done a great job with the Pomperog district for our 3 towns in providing services that will be listed here. So really the post-merger benefits for New Milford are the financials. But the merger proposal goes along all aspects: residential, employee, the whole process of that, and then the financial aspects. So talking about the merger for the residents of New Milford, it increases the staff, right? All of the New Milford staff would be retained, any full-time employees would be retained, and the districts would merge and all the employees would have positions. It does allow the creation of additional full-time and part-time positions. One of the things is sanitarians, and it'll have us increase sanitarians, which is always a big seller for all the communities. The community health education programs, in our 3 towns right now, we do a lot of evidence-based programming, the Matter of Balance, which is a fall prevention for our elderly community or any of the members of the community, a diabetes self-management program. We do a mental health first aid program, screening for services for diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol. We also, as I heard here tonight, we've done a couple of opioid programs, ones that were done at the Oxford High School. It's very important to us in our community as well, the opioid epidemic. And we've done a lot of education around that factors as well. I mention these programs because these are programs that in fact are paid for. So these are billable services that we do at the health district that generate revenue and obviously benefit the community. We do routine vaccinations, seasonal travel vaccinations when people can travel, and the healthy home inspections, promoting safe and decent sanitary housing for all the communities, as well as all of the normal aspects of the health departments. Food services, licensures, things of that nature. This would be the proposed organizational chart. You can see that it would be a very comprehensive board of, employees, which is important to us right now. As we talk about, we have a couple of employees here. We have sort of disjointed things. You'll see here. I will say that the Director of Health would remain Lisa Morrissey for all 5 towns. That's without question. And most of these positions are already filled by existing employees in our district and in yours. And then, of course, we see a couple of, hopefully, additional sanitarians, things like food inspector, part-time, things like that. I know I'm going quickly. I want to get to some of the important stuff. Obviously, we'll have questions. The employees, one of the things that has been really important to me over my entire career is professional development. Unfortunately, in public health, that's not a big, it's a challenge to have any professional development. I've been very fortunate into my career to be able to move up as a nurse, but it is important moving forward that all employees have a professional development plan and have able to move around and increase. We're working to modernize, and we've done over the past 6 months some great work with, you'll meet one of my colleagues tonight who we brought on as a consulting firm to update all of the policies and procedures, SOPs, things that the state sometimes lags on, but really bringing us up technologically to the 21st century. Standardizing the IT infrastructure, hopefully pushing that out to the different towns as well, so things are easily on the websites, you can get information, you can apply for things. So let's talk about the financial benefits, right? One of the things that we've started on is a fully integrated ERP with QuickBooks, establishing payroll and personnel, documents, time management, purchases, reimbursements. All of that is now in technology. We have financial controls over everything. We're rewriting all of the policies around that. The prorated funding. One of the things that is a huge benefit is the state, as Mayor Bass indicated, is really pushing for the communities to combine and do their health services together. This would, if the merger goes through in your next meeting, I think that's on your meeting schedule and for January, the state is July to July. The per capita funding that we get from the state, they would fully reimburse us without that being prorated. So that per capita would come directly to our combined health departments without being prorated. I'm not going to talk about the financials. I am going to have Kevin come up. He's the financial guru, and he'll talk the money that everyone is usually wanting to talk about. The 2023 budget, you'll see with merger permits, it's expansion of our current resources, and we have the access now to more grant funding. We'll have a dedicated grant writer and looking to establish higher amount of grant returns. So upon the successful merger of our health departments, we obviously would want to make that more inclusive. That would be the Housatonic Valley Health District. It's important for us to be Open to this, the Housatonic Valley incorporates about 83 to 84 towns. Again, our hope is that this is in fact the premier health department providing premier services to all 5 towns, being the state's best practices, and that keeping the Housatonic Valley Health District name would also, in the future, if we had other towns join, it would always be inclusive. This is very small. I'm going to have Kevin review this with you. And Kevin is part of the VMC consulting firm that we hired in order to, him and his colleague, rewriting all of our HR policies, all of our financials, SOPs, from the bottom up, everything brand new.
As Kevin's coming up New Milford centric wise, for us, if we're looking at a budgetary item, you're gonna see all the advantages, but for us, New Milford, right, if we're gonna just look at the numbers. So for instance, right now, the New Milford budget for this year, right, is $363,000 and change for this department. If we take out that and we go with this model, I believe it's based on the population, and I believe it's 1010.
Yes,
$10.10
per.
which brings that, I believe, to 283,000. So that's about a $96,000 savings, which brings us almost to $500,000 over a 5-year run rate of cost avoidance. The positive thing is you're going to see, is all the wonderful new programs we can actually partner with our other surrounding towns by partnering together. That's the power of being able to use this as a region. So just kind of for us to think about as a council, it's kind of a win-win. We have cost avoidance, but we're also being able to expand our services because we're partnering with other towns. Hope I said that correct.
I absolutely did.
All right.
I stole my thunder, but that's all
I'm
right.
sorry. All right.
So first thing, I want to say that I love the mural outside. I'm a 10th Mountain guy, so it's good to see. I didn't realize a connection, but very good to see.
Can I just get your last name? I'm sorry.
Anderson. So what we did was I went back over about a 5-year period and pulled actual costs to see how much we were actually making, what kind of revenue we were actually generating. From there, we kind of looked at what does the picture look like with New Milford and Washington coming on board. From there, we also kind of pulled together what we've changed. So the big things we've changed are financial controls. Not a dime gets spent without somebody knowing. No more ad hoc spending. We did things to put things where they belong, so money gets bucketed, right? So ideally, when you do that, you should see a significant savings. You usually don't see a super significant savings when you're also adding things. So we're adding new systems, we're adding new people, we're adding new processes, adding new services. We're making room for more timely services. So, you want to build that shed or that pool and you do that inspection, I assume you want it done as quickly as possible to get your pool or shed. So part of that was really trying to make sure that we were spending money the best way we could to both enhance services and kind of compress that dollar to get every dime out of it. So we ended up here is with a fully expanded organizational chart like you saw. That's everybody all inclusive on there, fully staffed. We end up, I know the writing's very small, I apologize, it's hard to fit these on slides and make them look normal. All included, our net expenses are about 1.6 million a year. That's for everybody, that's including the average services you guys need, along with Washington, along with all of the current district. Last page. Oh, there we go. Broke down on the bottom. So the net position at the end of the year right now is we're up $262,000 a year, year over year. You guys will save, about $96,000? And we come up, and all that money can get distributed into new services, into new employees, into especially professional development, as Dan said, increasing our licensure rates, and being able to field things like more cars, more people, right? So we can actually enhance everything we're doing while saving you money by saving us money. And then we're a nonprofit. That's the way these districts are structured. So we're only going to carry about 20% over that year over year. But we'll always have a rainy day fund. So 2 things. 1, more services. 2nd, we're not going to be coming back and trying to dip our hands in anybody's pockets to get more money on the back end. This is organized actuals. This is broken down exactly what spending is going to look like. And the way we've mapped this thus far is that if we move the grants, we're still functional. So the idea is that we're self-sustaining and we're always solvent, and we're never going back to any town, anybody, and asking for more, because we're not going to need it. And we'll keep that rainy day fund going, and if the merger is successful, everybody's on board. I think you'll see not only expansion in services, but you'll see more timely services. I think it's a big part, because I think that one of the hard things we have is in today's environment, especially with COVID, and just general lack of sanitarians, things like that, the cost for these roles have gone up exponentially. You can look, I think it was Greenwich a few weeks ago, their sanitarian, they hired, said 115,000, is that about right? Yeah, but 115,000, you got to think that that's out of, about 5 years ago, that was 80,000. That cost is only going to go up because not as many people are licensed. So by having this padding and by having the income from the towns, we're able to add more personnel to deliver more services in a more timely fashion. Again, without going back and asking anybody for more money. We're all in an automated system now. This is a fully functional ERP. It is completely self-reconciling. You can't touch a dime without somebody knowing. The approval processes are in place. So just by doing those simple things, we put a lot of money back into the budget. We've accounted for money that otherwise we don't get, like reimbursements for insurance companies. And in the end, we're able to save $250,000, hopefully save you $100,000, and deliver more for that savings.
Any questions so far?
I talk fast and I talk a lot, so if you have anything to ask, just interrupt me, feel free. It's structured as a nonprofit. So in Connecticut, a district is a way to pool together towns to share services to prevent having piecemeal services from one place to the next. That is statutorily built as a nonprofit, it's like a 501c3. It is governed by a board, which is appointed through the towns based on population. So it gives us a lot more breathing room. So we're not paying sales tax, a lot of the overhead that some people have we don't have to deal with. It just gives a little more flexibility when you're operating across municipalities under kind of a state authorized function.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question. So for the audience and everybody else who's watching us on Zoom, so the proposal is to create an entity?
So the proposal would be to bring New Milford into, we currently have an entity where we're going to be rebranding, but we're not going to be dissolving the 501c3 as it is. We just reincorporate to include New Milford and Washington.
So the financial advantage would be, so we're going to have this entity that will be shared among many municipalities like ours and stuff. So by sharing this, you're going to share the cost and what, in a sense, right? Budgetary,
Yeah.
Same software and so everything. So that's where the cost is going to come from.
Right, well, the cost is generated through the per capita funding, so it's by population. So I think was it 26 or 28,000 for New Milford next year, so it'd be that $10.10 fee per person, which is the entirety of what your end is, right? And then the state matches that at, I think it's $1.70 now per person. And that combined funding is what pools into our resources in order to provide services. The good part about that is that puts all the overhead on us.
Mm-hmm.
So you basically get a flat rate, and then we go off and build from there. It is typically money saving to do it this way because you're going to get more service, because you have to think, if you need another sanitarian, and you're growing, your population is definitely growing, is definitely building. If you need another sanitarian, that's going to add $115,000 to your current budget just to bring on that sanitarian. And then on top of that, we pay things like mileage for our sanitarians to go out and drive and be in the field, public health nurse. These things that are kind of, as you grow, you need them more often, and they can't always be a contract position or a part-time position. They become full-time. That $396,000 is going to balloon into $500,000 very quickly, and then only up from there, because the going market rates for these employees are challenging. And the highest bidder is getting the win right now, and there's a lot of higher bidders out there. Right now, we have resources that are comfortable resources that are staying with us, that have worked throughout the Milford area under an MOU, and we figured out a way to balance costs so that, again, we're saving you money, but at the same point, we're also able to compress our costs down to a point where we don't have to worry about going in the red and coming back and trying to, hat in hand. So what I guess I'm trying to say is, when we have that amount of guaranteed services And we don't need to continuously worry about what next year's budget's gonna look like, how it's gonna hit the taxpayers, because you already know, you can tell 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, that the costs are gonna stay the same for you. It's on us now to balance this budget, it's on us to provide the resources, and on us to facilitate pretty much every aspect at one flat rate.
Will all the municipalities have the same service level agreement, or there will be different SLAs between you and the municipalities?
Everybody gets equal services. So we are pool, but everybody gets equal services across the board. It's the district services everybody. We don't service anybody more than we would service anybody else.
Okay.
So if demand's there, then service is given.
Thank you.
And just for the council, there's already districts that are already here, many districts. Torrington has their own district, I believe. Does Danbury? Newtown, right. Newtown has one. So there's a bunch already that are combining. The state is really pressuring and forcing this consolidation in the health department world. So the question that we got to ask as a council is, do we want to be proactive and kind of take it and under kind of our terms? Or it could be at some point in time, maybe a year from now, where if we don't do this, the state comes in and says, well, you're going to go to this other district. There's this district, as I'm sure Ann will talk a little bit more about it too, is, for instance, the board of directors. The board of directors, you have the number of seats is based on the population. So New Milford will definitely be very well positioned for the board of directors. I know Ann has been, I've had several conversations, as she's talked about before here very eloquently, all about service to our residents and to the district, also about training, all about excellence, which we're all very much concerned about here. And it's a hedge too. So just as we were talking about before, as the needs continue to grow, these costs are going to mount. And if we can spread it out over a bigger geography and then have the state help us and subsidize this district versus right now, am I correct, Lisa? We get no subsidy, right? So that just leverages the dollar, our taxpayer dollar. So to me, it just seems like a win-win. Okay. Oh, Chris?
So on the board of directors, so it's not one seat for each town, it's based on population, okay.
Yeah, it's one member per 10,000.
Got it.
So based on your population, you would have two, and Washington would have one.
Okay.
I'm Woodbury, we have only one. Southbury also has two, and Oxford has two. So you're equally represented.
Okay, and so in terms of decision-making authority and adding services, removing services, making changes, often currently, they would come to the mayor and they would come before this town council. How is this handled there?
Now this would be Lisa bringing forth any new services that she feels are needed in the community based on evidence-based practice, based on the recommendations of the communities, doing focus groups amongst our constituents and seeing what they need. She brings that to the board, and then we review that and we vote on that as a board.
Okay. And in terms of service levels to our citizens and our businesses in town, how can I find out a year from now, 2 years from now, if we choose to go this way, how that is working?
If I understand you correctly, you want to know if your restaurants are being serviced and what the food services looks like. So as part of this whole transition, whether or not the merger goes through, which I'm very hopeful it will, all of that will be now on the web. We'll have a brand new website where everyone can go in our 5 towns and read about different restaurant reviews and the septic things that are available and be able to print your documents and all of that.
But I guess in terms of when I talk about service levels, so are things being taken care of on a timely basis, complaints, et cetera? You have a quote-unquote customer complaint system?
Right, so we'll have a feedback loop on all of that.
And that would be accessible to?
Oh yes, that would be the transparency,
Public.
so all of our selectmen will have access to all of that information.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
It's one of the things that I'm...
Lisa?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, one last. IT security, how is that being handled?
that's a whole thing that's outside. Do you want to talk about the IT?
Happy to. First, I want to go back and answer the question that you were asking Chris about that transparency, about how services are being handled and the timeliness of this. So there already is an existing mechanism in place. So all health departments and health districts are required to submit to the state an annual report, which is on the DP's website, which details the complaints that are coming in, the activities that they engaged in, the revenues that they brought in, and the types of services that they're providing to their community. And there's been increased pressure from the state for health departments and health districts to meet those national accreditation standards, which I think we've talked about in the past. I know that the mayor and I certainly talked about them. So every year you have to benchmark against how you're meeting that standard. So that part of it is built in there as well. You can actually see how your health department or district compares to others.
So that's just only reported annually?
Well, all right. I'm going to toot our horn a little bit here, Mayor. So we've actually already started the process of doing monthly reports. So we've been putting together monthly reports that I've been submitting directly to the mayor, so that these are the number of restaurants that have been inspected. These are the number of complaints that have come in. And similarly, I've been doing a set for Anne for her district because I thought it was really important because people want to know like what exactly is the health department doing. And then I know that you guys know, sorry, I'm sitting with Milford. I know that you guys know from the time that I've been in New Milford, it's not just important that people know us for providing COVID vaccines and swabbing noses, but what's the other two things I said? When I first came to New Milford, people thought that the health department did restaurants and septic systems, but really to look at the full breadth of services that the health department is providing. And those monthly reports really do allow us to showcase the services that we are doing and the impact that we're having on the community and how we are engaging with the community to help shape the decisions about what future services will look like.
And that's very time consuming right now for one person, right? And
right.
The combination of the districts would allow, the sanitarians to upload their work, the grant writers to upload their own work, and so that's accessible without one person having to do 100 persons.
Want me to take IT too? All right, so then for information technology piece, so one of the things that is happening, cross-cutting, we have an MOU that we've been working under to upgrade all technology systems. So here in New Milford, we have the same exact problem that the folks in Concord Health District have. You want to put in a pool, you want to put in a shed, you got to actually come down to the health department, then we got to dig through the files, and we've got to find a copy of that plan, then we have to get someone to upload it, then you got to walk across the hall to the building department. So the technology infrastructure upgrade really is to include digitizing those files, and with all of those pieces also comes, okay, we're doing it for that, also doing it for communicable disease, and really ensuring that our technological standards are meeting all state and federal requirements. Particularly because there's a lot of personal health information that is protected in there, and it has to meet the standards of the town's information technology system. So I want to say on both sides of the house, because the New Milford Health Department was in the same boat, and I know that the mayor and I had conversations about this, going back to January and February, and really making those upgrades so that the systems would work. The beauty and the benefit, I think, is that because the town and the district simultaneously, but separate from each other, have been doing that work, if the merger were to go through, the systems are compatible, and it makes it much easier to say that we can provide top-notch 21st century services and really start to get away from all these paper systems that really, myself included, it's frustrating. Like when you're a property owner and you want to do something and it takes an extra week for someone to find a file, scan it and upload it and send it back to you.
But you would have your own IT people versus relying on our town IT?
So I don't want to, that's probably more Kevin's thunder, but I will say that from the perspective that I know, that there's under negotiation on how it's going to work, since we're still going to be housed here locally in New Milford, and there's going to be intersections. So that's a conversation that the district's been having to talk about what infrastructure technology would be needed to be compatible with New Milford and what the cost of that would look like. Would the district bring in their own IT, or would they do a cost reimbursement to the town?
We just want to make sure, Chris, because we've invested with the council heavy sums of funds to make sure our cybersecurity is strong and make sure when the networks interact with one another, that they're as protected on their back end as we are here.
Yeah, okay, good.
So we've had Dave kind of review them as well as we're moving forward with that
Good.
stuff.
Okay, great.
Katie?
Thank you.
Kevin, right?
Yes.
So, for all of you, so I understand the Pompero Health of Houston Valley now. There are 5 towns. What is the likelihood that another town or 2 would come along, such as Warren? I deal with 7 towns. We call it Southern Litchfield County and United Way. Everybody's got a different district for schools. So let's take Warren as an example.
I think a couple of things with that. One, as the mayor indicated, the state is really looking for towns to be moving into a district for services and to be able to fund those. So it is my hope that we grow the district. Not within the next year. My hope is that when we do this merger, it really is the best practice. It is the premier health department, and other towns will want to join. I think that there is a cost benefit for all of us and an increase in services when we do that. The other thing that I mentioned before, and I've had this conversation with the mayor, is that from my perspective, you know, I have young children, middle school, high school age. They are, all of our children within this community are now much closer together based on social media, right? So there is a huge part of this whole thing to make sure that our communities are working well together in a public health perspective and for mental health too. And so my hope is that we grow the district.
Okay, so along with that, which of course would be good, as one of the larger towns, New Milford, we've talked a lot about the financial benefits, et cetera, but let's talk about resident care. Attention to things such as adding sanitarians, because of course that is something that, you know, we've talked about for years. Never enough to go to where you need to go. So at some point, say add another couple of towns, maybe it becomes a 7 or an 8 town region. At some point, it becomes not as cost effective. So I guess what I'm asking is, in other areas where this type of thing is done, where it's all regional, what's the likelihood that, you won't come back for funding, but what's the likelihood that we would have to wait longer? Because if my sanitarian, or one of our 2, let's say we have 2, has to drive to Warren, right, or Washington, let's say big area, drive around to all the different places to go, what's the likelihood, or is there any likelihood that that would create a longer wait than we may be accustomed to in our town, since it's our town?
Go right ahead, Kim.
So one of the values of doing this kind of district merger thing is you end up with economies of scale. I can see what your service levels look at going back 5 years, and I can see your projected growth over the next 5 years. So basically, when you have that kind of information, it comes to forecasting not only financials, but also service providing. We can work that in so that we may have somebody, we expand that far, who's centrally located in Milford at all times. But because we know that a smaller town requires less services, as a given, right? Or they're co-located with another town, because obviously the idea would be contiguous or as close contiguous as possible. So we bring on more to be capacity because we do have a look back and we can forecast forward. I just want to be clear to your point over there is that everything I do is data driven, and that's kind of what I brought to the district, is that we build things on forecasting based on actual numbers and needs. So when we build out these systems, we're looking ahead 5 years. We're not just going to next July. We're looking ahead 5 years, 3 years, and then we're putting models together for what that looks like if it gets this big or that big. And we have taken account multiple times geography. New Milford's a huge town.
Right.
A lot of driving.
Right.
So, you know, that's one of the needs for sanitarian is not only calls for service, but also the expansive amount of movement, right?
Right.
So
even the smaller towns, Washington and Warren as an example, it's a long way from one place to the other. You know, it's not as big as we are. So you also note in here, you're going to come up with a new website, and you're going to be .gov.
Yes.
How does that come about for a nonprofit model? How does that work?
Well, we are statutorily, we do exist by statute, right? So we are a quasi-governmental agency.
Right.
As a district. So we are formulated by statute. We do have the backing of statutory authority in Connecticut, especially for things like septics and food inspections.
Okay.
All these things require you to have some kind of enforcement capabilities, which are granted by the state, as are with any health department. So we are quasi-governmental in that One, the board is staffed by constituent representatives of the local elected officials. And two, I think even more importantly, is that our funding comes from the government, right? So we have a per capita from the state, and then we have the per capita from towns. You know, these are all indicative of what a government structure would look
And
like.
with that indicative item of oversight and possibly control if something isn't as they might want it to be, could that come along with that? Government, you know, if, let's say the state, okay, so we just got through hearing talk about, well, you know, there's a mandate here and there's no mandate there. Would this always be an independent unit?
Yes.
Even with new towns thrown, however, it will always be the Housatonic Valley, and you would make the decisions. The towns would make the decisions.
Yes, they're input via the board.
Good.
And-
I think that's a concern for a lot of people,
Yep.
so I wanted to bring that up.
And also, Katie, is a hedge, because we always want to make sure we hedge both the upside and the downside. The hedge is, let's say we have an expectation of a service level, and for whatever reason, it doesn't happen. Then I believe within 36 months, we have the ability to opt out, if we so choose. But I believe with the current leadership and everything else, I believe this is going to be a wonderful
This type of merger has worked
experience.
very well in other states around the country. It works for schools, it works for health districts, it works for police departments, so I have no reason to think it won't work here. And VMC has been doing this a while, so.
Craig, you had a question?
Just a point of clarification as far as logistics and finances. Are you absorbing our current employees in the Housatonic Valley District?
All full-time employees get absorbed into the new HVHD.
Our current employees will be now employees of the Housatonic Health District?
Yes.
Yes.
You're responsible for their salary and their benefits?
Everything.
Everything. And from a budgetary standpoint, we would budget an appropriation, annual appropriation that we would give to Housatonic Valley Health District. That's the way it would work?
Yes.
$10.10 a person.
Okay.
Flat rate. Can't beat it.
You pay flat rate.
So I was going down the same road. But it's housed here in New Milford, the offices is what you're saying? You would house the offices of the director, the health director of the Housatonic Valley? That's what I heard. It's housed here in New Milford?
No.
No.
Yes. Yes and no.
Well, who's here in New Milford is what I want to know. Who would be housed in New Milford?
So what we've been working under the MOU while I was providing support to the district is that I've been doing a split week. So I would be here 3 days a week, and I would be there 2 days a week. And the staff, as we've been sharing them through this whole time, they've been going back and forth. So for example, today, the 2 sanitarians actually hit 4 out of 5 towns. So they're really sharing. And then for the staff that are not in the field, similar things, they're going in split locations to provide those services. So another way to think about it, when we think about our vaccination services, we were really able to use teams from both that district and from our own health department to really fulfill a lot of our mission. So we really have shown that it is possible, and it's not much different than the private sector from my perspective, because I came from the private sector before I was in the public sector, when you have more than one office and you have employees that you're rotating through offices.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. So, but we have insurance liabilities and other liabilities relative to whoever's housed here and where they're housed and taking care of their space, et cetera. So there's savings in salaries, but there are also other expenses and liabilities the town will have because those people will be housed in town.
No, they'll be housed in their own office space in New Milford, not in Town Hall.
So their own office space, like, okay.
Down the street.
Yep.
Whatever.
So,
A
yeah.
space
and
you
then-
don't have yet.
So, yeah, You're not kicking me out yet, are you?
I don't want you to go anywhere.
Okay.
This is what I have to do.
Well, and that was one of the pieces that was really important to myself, and it was also very important to the mayor as well. It was one of the preliminary conversations when he asked me, like, do you even want to do this? So then I wanted to address the point that you made about liability, because it really is a big piece, and I'm sorry to steal your guys' thunder, but this comes under the public health piece. So Kevin is a financial expert and the expert of talking about, board pieces, but when it comes to like the public health policy and regulations, I'm your girl. So that is actually set, again, by state statute. There are actually state regulations that guide and govern all of that. So similarly, when I came into New Milford and I was just like, hey, let's start a clinic. And then Greg Ossipow, myself, along with Randy, and the mayor had to sit down and we had to go through a whole new level of liability insurances that we had to carry. And talking to Dave Watson, because we had to increase, our cybersecurity and those things. The district has the same pieces and the same liability. So when we talk about an accident that happens when an inspection happens, or trip and falls and all those pieces, that falls under the district's liability, not under the town's liability. So I think that's an important piece of clarification to go on that as well. And then I know that someone had asked the question, and Ann did a really wonderful job talking about the oversight of this, but I think it's also still worth noting and to remind everyone, the district, while it does get the privileges of a non-for-profit, it is still a governmental agency. And just like our health department and myself, at the end of the day, the State Department of Public Health has oversight. They have oversight of the district, and all of the same rules apply. And in some respects, it's actually more stringent because it's not underneath a municipality doing those pieces. So I just wanted to clarify that as well, because I thought that was an important piece that came up that some people had asked.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Go ahead.
So Katie was talking about Warren. Sherman, do we cover Sherman for we don't?
So we assisted with vaccinations. They sent the kids for vaccinations, but Sherman has a cooperative agreement with New Fairfield, which
Okay,
is
that's
separate
what I thought.
departments
Okay.
outside of our area.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Any other questions for Ann, Lisa?
Kevin?
Okay, Kevin?
I just said nothing.
Okay.
Excellent presentation
Oh, thank you.
by everybody.
Thank you. I've been very fortunate over the past 6 months to really bring together an A-team of people. I'll say again, Lisa Morrissey is fantastic. I've worked in healthcare for the past 25 years. She's a gem. VMC Consulting has been just excellent in bringing us to the 21st century. Public health is a huge passion of my own, and making sure that our communities are served well and in the best way possible with the best care for public health, not just our septics and fees. I think we really could do a lot of good for our elderly populations, for which we have so many in our 5 towns, our youth, which is a huge passion of mine as well, and then the rest of us at this age. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chris?
Just one last thing, and I think the thing that always concerns me about doing something like this is, even though there is a cost benefit, but giving up local control, and thereby maybe affecting the service level to our citizens and our businesses. Would you be coming to us with some sort of frequency and just kind of reporting out service levels and that sort of thing?
Sure, I think that goes back to what Lisa says. Right now, we're doing a monthly of the services that are getting provided. I will say that you will have 2 board members, right? You'll have 2 seats on the board. It will be very important to make sure that you find people who, 1, will show up,
Right.
2, have the agenda of the towns in mind, 3, will show up. I think that that's been a huge issue, making sure that people come and are transparent with you as a town council and represent what you want as part of the voting process.
That's
Good
our
point.
liaison
Good
to.
point.
Yes,
Yep.
you'll be appointed 2 members
Will be appointed
from the
positions.
community, and that will be appointed. So
Joe?
those are
Good point.
appointees.
Thank you.
I'm generally pretty shy here, but, and too new at this. The one thing I was gonna mention, Chris, is we're not giving up complete control. It's regionalization. And it's happening, unfortunately, across states like Connecticut, even at school districts. and everything else. The upside to it is we have membership on it, and we'll have access to more resources. So we give up something, in return we're hopefully going to get that much more.
Yes, I agree, and that's true. Again, finding two appointees that you have perhaps board membership experience, maybe have health experience, maybe have business experience, whatever you decide as a town council is important to you, making sure you find those people and making sure they'll show up. Because I think that has been the battle in the past.
So just in terms of the PII and other information that Chris was asking before, if you guys are quasi-government organizations, you have to go through all the filtration by the governments, and PHI and the PII, the personal identification information is all squared and all cleared. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to exist and promote something. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Mary Jane?
I just want to say, I think this is a great idea. I'm in back of it 100%. And we've been talking about, for a long time, even at the council, about regionalization and having, regional health districts. And I think this is going to be really good for New Milford. It's going to be a win-win.
I think so, too. I think it's going to be great for all 5 of our towns and the benefits that we can bring to everyone.
Thank you.
This packet wasn't quite what you presented. Can you maybe send me the full packet tomorrow?
We'll send the electronic thing to you. Yep.
I probably didn't get through the whole thing.
I just have one quick last question. I'm sorry, I forgot to write down. So of the other towns, has everyone else acceded to this and said, yes, it's great, we want to do it?
Yes, so all 3 of our selectmen are on board. They're obviously thrilled with the idea of expanding services, bringing in more money to the district, and having Lisa lead the district, of course.
Great, thank you.
So the next part is
So-
item for this to work,
Right.
is if this council agrees, the next step would be to publicize this and hold a public hearing. Okay?
I'd like to make a motion that we set a public meeting on the town of New Milford joining the Housatonic Valley Health District, and I'd suggest January 10th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m.
Second?
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Mayor, moving on to item C, I would like to make a motion to set a special town meeting concerning ARPA, the fund distribution of funds approved by the town council and the Board of Finance, and I'd suggest that date be January 10th, 2022 at 6:45 p.m.
Second.
Any discussion? And these were the ones that were approved by both the town council and the Board of Finance. Joe?
I will say this here, as I did on the Board of Education, all these special funds are nice to have, and we get to do all these neat things and provide all these feel-good services. But what we haven't done or don't discuss in detail is these are limited for limited times. So, and I'll mention again on the next day, we put in for we approve these youth counselors, for one thing. Particularly, I'm specifically talking about personnel. And those funds will run out, a 2-year trial. At that point, what do? Do we fire those people, or do we add that kind of money plus into our budget? And it's something we need to continually remember and consider. Everybody wants this, there's good reason for it, and I really, it's like extra legislation. It's feel-good stuff. But 2 years down the line, which means next budget year, we got to discuss how we're going to fund, particularly personnel.
So Joe, great question. For instance, the youth agency, the counselors for the mental health clinic on the town side, I know the Board of Ed is working on theirs. But our piece, as I asked Jason, is what can we do to sustain? So one of the things that we're going to be doing is setting up similarly to we do the clinic, is to be able to take insurance and use those insurance funds to help fund this as well as grants for those counselors. So that position we're anticipating in year 2, year 3, to be able to be self-sustaining.
You mean charge insurance companies for the services of those counselors?
Correct.
And here's something that comes to mind, because I know this situation. Everybody believes, and it's, you know, it's nice that we can charge, or hopefully charge insurance companies, health insurance companies, to provide these services to people, and we reimburse. In this day and age, health insurance costs are extremely out of control. And in part of that controlling health insurance, what everybody, almost every insurance company has done now is gone to high deductible policies for people, and this is in the private sector I'm speaking about. As a result, it ends up being the individual policy holders who pay this money out of their own pockets until they hit their deductibles. I would venture to say most high deductible plans in this day and age are at about $7, $8, $9, or $10,000. That's coming out of that individual's checkbook or pocketbook or savings account to cover those expenses. So as much as we like the fact that we could get health insurance to cover health insurance in this day and age is in the public sector, in the private sector, is becoming nothing more than catastrophic protection. Aside from that, it's coming out of people's pockets. And again, we keep New Milford's not growing as big as some people may say. So if our growth rate is flat, our tax rate becomes flat, give or take, we have less businesses in town, these burdens fall on the individual homeowners.
Joe, I know, you weren't here for all of the ARPA discussion, but it is specifically a criteria of receiving funding that it cannot burden our town's budget.
For the next 2 years. What do we do year 3 when we discuss next year?
You can't add something on here that when the time is up, that it's going to be a given that it burdens the town. So we have a way to, as Mayor just said to you, what the thinking is, just like we have the crisis intervention person who's going to work under social services. But that 2 years is a way to see, A, if it's something that we need and what it can do to help us, give us other ideas, but to not take advantage of it, to see how, especially at a time when mental health with youth is like the priority issue.
These are feel-goods, Katie, and I got it. I'm going to vote for this, but I need the public to know where I stand on the fact that 2 years out, these people either get fired or we find money to do it. And saying through health insurance is kind of
well, it's one option.
Smoke and screens because of high deductible policies in the private and the public private sector. I get them.
We're not saying that we're putting this in here, and Mayor, you can step in here, but I'm going to just say, because we've been talking about this for weeks and weeks, is that is one way to combat adding any of this funding. But the real major point about this is that we have youth who, because of COVID and a lot of other stresses today in this world that we didn't have maybe when we were growing up, mental health is the #1 priority. I mean, when I'm with the United Way, believe me, mental health is up there like vying with food. And we have to do something. Our youth agency is poised to do it at best.
Mental health has been a concern in this country for generations.
Right.
We just identify it differently, so we put it out there so we can
we're going to do
address it.
something. I mean,
But
if we know that it's been
what
there,
I'm
why would
doing-
we not do something?
When we come back here, well, I'll be off here in 2 years. When you come back for that 3rd year, let's see where you stand. Because it's not only here, and it'll be in the next section, because we need funding for
But our
for the
residents.
public libraries personnel, and then the school board. The school board's doing the same thing. They have
Yes.
school boards are receiving an incredible amount of money for COVID relief, and it's allowed them to put in because we have some unique situations. I could just relate because of my years on the BOE to where children are today, and the mental health stresses on them because of this pandemic situation we've been in. And so we have these additional services, and they're good, and they help, and they make a difference. But everybody doesn't want to talk about when
they
all
will,
these funds run out in 2
but
years.
Joe, you can't look away, and I think we misjudge our residents to say that as this becomes a more priority problem that keeps expanding as we know it has, as you just said, it's been around forever, is that people will realize that if they want to have accessible help for their children, just as with aging people that, that has to become part of our budget. And economy
Okay.
of scale, if everybody kicks in,
As
you
long
know
as
what I
you're
mean?
saying that and people understand that there's a budget consequence eventually.
Well, this is one of many items that we've all been talking about, and you could
Well,
probably
I'm
come
sorry,
up.
I'm only here
No,
for
no,
a
no,
month,
but I'm just saying,
but-
we've had this, I'm glad you bring it up. We've had discussions about almost every single item that's been on here. But I think, so you understand, we can't add something that will positively burden. So this, yes, either those people could be gone, or we find a way to subsidize it, or the town says, no, don't get rid of them, this has been a huge help. But if we don't do it, how are we ever gonna know?
But can I say one thing? Sure. To
Absolutely.
Joseph's point, I think that it would be very helpful to have a line item, an itemized list of all of the things that have, been agreed to, so then we can see, what we do. I have not received that.
This is what's here, right?
No, I think what he was saying
I did
is
it myself,
the
but sort of,
full list of everything that we've
Oh,
done.
oh,
everything, and
well,
the
you do
cost,
have
and
that.
the ones that
The mayor has
potentially
that.
have a recurring
Budget impact.
and then we can actually know that number. Oh, look, we're talking about possibly $300,000 of a recurring cost.
Sure, yep.
And it might help us weigh those things.
And Joe, I've been vocal in all of these things, I think along the same lines as you, is that we're putting these in for a 2-year trial. There need to be metrics in place at the end of 2 years. We need to understand truly what the value is of this and then make decisions. Do we maintain these positions going forward that do impact our budget or not?
Right.
And the reason I'd like the discussion right now is so that the public knows and remembers 2 years. You know what? Somebody, we don't know who it was because we don't remember his name, brought it up.
Sure, yep.
And I think that's,
And this is the second time it's come up, Mayor, because the first time it was on the agenda, we kind of had to go around.
and I think it's apropos, and I think the public needs to know, but I also think the public knows this. As you know, Joe, because you sat on the Board of Ed for many, many years, we know firsthand, as I sat in the meetings with our youth agency and our counselors at the high school in Scotticoke. Right now, those kids are in major crisis, which is why the Board of Ed took their $2.5 million ESSER funds, almost all of it, right? And are applying it to both administrative salaries and to their own mental health clinics. So my question I would pose to this town council is, what if we don't do anything?
Not an option.
What's gonna be the unintended cost of that, of students and kids with isolation, depression? What are they gonna do? Are they gonna go to college, or are they not gonna go to work? Are they gonna feel isolated? What's gonna be that unintended consequences, year 3, year 4, year 5? To me, I'd like to plow
Listen, Mayor,
the investment in there now, as you would too, Joe. I'd like to plow that investment in there now, and in a year, we look and see where it is, and then in year 2, we look and see where it is. But I did ask Jason, saying, how can we do this? How can we supplant revenue? How can we do this to keep these programs moving forward?
By charging insurance companies and high deductible. That's the one thing that nobody ever talks about in this day and age. Anybody working in private sector knows what a high deductible insurance policy is.
Because of Obamacare.
So, listen, I'm gonna vote for this, but I sometimes talk about the things nobody wants to talk about.
Absolutely.
Alice has a question.
Yeah, I'm with you, Joe. I hear it. That's some of my questions too. What, the 2 years are up, then what? But also those high school students that are getting the services with the money that the Board of Ed got, some of them are going to be graduating, and in those 2 years, they're going to be citizens of the community who may need that mental health. So this is longer term, right? And this is something that should be ongoing. And I hope we don't spend it all. Let's not allocate all this money, because I think we're going to see bigger issues, just as you said, Mr. Mayor. We're going to see bigger issues sooner than later, and there better be some money left for what's going to come next. And I just don't want to rush. A lot of towns haven't even started this conversation, and I don't want to allocate all this money up front when we know we're going to see more. And I just want to be cautious about that.
What is the time limit again? What is the time that we have to spend this? What's the end date?
2 years.
We have 2 years.
Okay. So
And when you look at the ARPA fund itself, coming down from President Biden and down through Congress was they wanted us to really use this money right away to get the towns out of whatever thing we say out of COVID, in a way, to bring the community out.
Recovery.
So, yeah, to recover.
And the clock on the 2 years has already started, right?
Correct.
Yes.
So it's ticking.
Well, I'd just like to say we're very lucky to have these funds. I'm very
Absolutely.
grateful to the president for making this happen.
So we have a motion?
You have a motion.
We have a motion, we have a second?
Yes.
I'm sorry, are we on C only?
Yes.
C.
Okay, thank you.
C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So,
And the motion was the suggested date to, that I made the motion with to have the town meeting about and approving this, which has been approved by the Board of Finance as well, would be January 10th, 2022 at 6:45 PM, 15 minutes after we talk about the Houstonic Valley Health District. Same day. Town council.
any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Item 9D would be discussion on American Rescue Funds, as noted on the agenda. They're 1 through 5. And Mayor, if you'd like to start with the public library.
Lorna?
Thank you so much for having me tonight, Mr. Mayor and Katie and town council members. I want to start by inviting all of you, please come and take a tour of the library construction project. I've had a couple of people in here, but I think it's really important for you to come and see the space that we have, because it lets you know, the kind of services that we're going to be able to offer. And so please give a call or drop by anytime during the day, and we'd be happy to give you a walk around. So the New Milford Public Library is seeking ARPA funds tonight for staffing, equipment, and furnishings of the library's new Innovation and Information Services Department, which encompasses 2 floors of the library now, both maker space, which will be on our mezzanine, and an information services area, which is the entire upper level of the library now. The objectives of the department coincide closely with ARPA goals of reducing negative impacts of the pandemic on businesses and families. I'm going to start by talking about the makerspace because it's a lot more involved. The library's makerspace is going to be an experiential learning center for the discovery of a broad spectrum of creative equipment and technology that will be focused on digital literacy, basic life skills, and also creative crafting. The library makerspace is going to have learning opportunities that are closely aligned with ARPA objectives, such as equipment that can be used to teach progressive coding skills, equipment that can teach ways in which digital files can be used to generate projects in varying formats, materials, and at progressive levels of complexity. The equipment will promote an understanding of electric circuits, promote creative expression, and also, as I said, teach traditional life skills. So some of the issues that will be addressed are job displacement. We all know that job displacement due to the pandemic has hit lower income Americans disproportionately. And so the makerspace will offer an opportunity for people to come in and learn STEM skills that can open up new opportunities for higher paying jobs. We also know that because of the pandemic, homeschooling has increased. The Census Bureau's household survey showed that a 5.6% increase in homeschooling between the spring and fall of the 2020-21 school year due to the impacts of coronavirus. So the makerspace is going to be a wonderful space for the homeschoolers to meet and collaborate and learn new skills with access to traditional equipment and digital technology that otherwise would not be available to them. We also know that the children in the community have experienced learning loss due to the pandemic. And so the Makerspace offers a venue for the library to collaborate with the schools to accelerate learning. We have agreed to coordinate already with the assistant superintendent to develop opportunities for students to use the Makerspace in ways that allow them to set goals, to take ownership of their learning. The objective will be to accelerate the creative process in ways that help students to overcome learning loss. Also, women have been disproportionately affected by the health crisis. We know that as many as 2 million women, particularly mothers of young children, have been forced to consider leaving the workforce or stepping back from their careers. And in the Makerspace, we teach people how to use digital equipment that can spark ideas for creative home businesses that can put women back to work by allowing them to make their own hours and work from home. We're also going to have just laptops there, a set of laptops and a screen, a projector and screen for teaching standard computer literacy classes. So we'll be able to have groups of people in to teach Microsoft Office applications, Google Suite, social media, Zoom, and other connective digital platforms. This is going to address job loss by teaching people skills that help them to find better jobs. It will also be a space where we can show entrepreneurs and business owners how to use social media to promote their services and bring business back to pre-pandemic levels. And it will be a space where we can teach isolated seniors how to connect digitally via Zoom, and also to be able to use telehealth services. As I said, we'll also have traditional tools such as just electric drills, hammers, sewing machines, and so on, which can be used to teach traditional life skills, some of which we'll be able to lend to people who don't have those things in their homes. So social connection has been one of the most severe impacts of COVID-19. We're all talking about mental health here, and we know how important it is for people to be able to come together and connect in a community environment. And so we'll be able to offer crafting programs and projects like Artist in Residence that will allow people to learn and create together. It's going to provide a safe space for people to come together to develop teamwork and planning skills. And it's just going to be a really a wonderful social connection site for our community. That's it for the Makerspace. That's kind of in a nutshell. The information services desk is separate. As I said, it's on a separate floor. There's going to be a desk there where that will be staffed by professional people, and it's going to be a place where people in our community can come to learn how to get online and fill out job applications, upload their resumes, find and fill out online unemployment applications, applications for assistance with food assistance, and it'll be a space, a place where the staff there will know where and when to refer people for social assistance as well in the community. And it's also a place where people can come for one-on-one assistance, and all the different digital applications that I talked about giving classes in the Makerspace area. If people need one-on-one assistance, have like a specific question or whatever, they can come to that person that's at the information services desk and get help there as well. You should also know that the information services area will have meeting rooms and study rooms so that people who have now become entrepreneurs or who are now working from their home can be able to get away from home and come into the library and have a space to work, or to collaborate with other business people in the community. So the department is also going to be responsible for connecting with other town departments and organizations to provide digital literacy outreach. So the Social Services Department has already expressed an interest in having the ability to schedule their patrons for like a set of regularly available appointments to come in and get assistance with library staff in, like I said, getting food services or, things like that. The library's request for funding includes a year and a half of full-time staffing, 2 full-time people, a department supervisor, and also a department assistant. The assistant would be heavily involved in developing the makerspace and creating the programming in that space. Once, we are expecting that this is going to be very, wonderful resource for the community and very useful to our community members, and that just what you were talking about, that the town will continue to support these 2 positions after the year and a half is out. So the budget includes, for those 2 people for a year and a half, $191,440. For furniture, which would be locked furniture because there's going to be expensive equipment up there, and it will also be mobile, so that will allow us to make changes in the future if we need, if we have different equipment or different needs for that space. The cost of the furniture is $40,162, and tentative selections of equipment and materials are $43,612. So the total cost of the project is $275,214. And would you have any questions for me?
Chris?
Lorna, I appreciate your big thinking and thinking out of the box here. I think there's some really good ideas. I guess, so I've got a couple concerns. One would be kind of the last sentence here that we're saying, hey, we'll fund this now with ARPA, but once it runs out, it'll automatically go to the budget. My opinion, I think that automatically disqualifies it for ARPA funding.
That's right.
Because what that means is it's not specifically COVID related. And so the other thing I would say is I'm wondering if there's another way to tackle some of this, because you're doing a little bit social services, you're doing a little bit of senior center, you're doing a little bit within the schools,
Right.
et cetera. Is there a way we can accomplish many of the same things and keeping that house more in those individual groups and they collaborating with you better, and we keep the costs down? And the head count is what kind of scares me on this.
Yeah.
Lorna, if I understood what you're saying, I think, Chris, not so much, maybe because I heard you talk about it before, but not so much that it would be doing the same things as those other agencies, but that people within the library, particularly the maker space, because they'd be interacting with people in a different way than our normal library people coming and going using the library, is that they would be cognizant of helping people with, directing them, right? Directing
Yeah.
somebody who they felt has an issue one way or the other. I think it has to do with them being a little bit more in touch with some of these people. Am I saying that correctly? I mean, you're not expecting to do the job of the social services.
We are not
no,
expecting
right.
to do social services
Right.
at
You're
all.
just saying that they'll have the ability to be able to help someone direct.
We are going to, know about the different departments and services in town, and so when somebody comes in asking about a specific kind of service, we can say, oh, you know, you need to speak with the social services department. We're not going to try and
So you're just going to make
give.
sure that the staff is trained on
That's
this
very important, that
type
the
of
staff
stuff.
knows the different services that are available in town. Because people come into the library for all kinds of different reasons. And sometimes when they're there, things come up that, you know, we wouldn't have expected. And so we're a hub. We're a place for people to come. And, you know, we are...
You're a safe place.
We're a safe place, exactly right. And the people who have been working in this library for years now, people in the community know these people and they trust these people. And, you know, it's a place where they come when they need help. And, you know, we're known for that in the community.
Yeah, I guess my concern would be, that, you know, it'd be roughly 190,000 that would go forward into the budget. By the time we get to that budget 2 years from now, it'll be a little bit more than that. I mean, that's going to equal roughly, you know, $8 million in grand list growth, something like that, to cover that cost.
Well,
That's a lot.
I mean, we have this new and beautiful and fabulous building that we built because, you know, people had faith that there was a need for it in this community. If, you know, if people didn't feel that there was a need for this in the community, then they wouldn't have voted to have the place built. They couldn't have possibly, you know, thought that they were going to have all these new and beautiful, you know, spaces, and we're talking about having a maker space that we are going to need to staff the library building.
Lorna, I think one of the things that I'd have to say, yes, I think the maker space is great, but I also know that we've had them here. We've had a makery, and COVID, of course, didn't help that. But I think there are people within the community who, we have Robotics and Beyond for one, and plus the youth agency and some of these homeschool groups. Personally, I think putting this $190,000 in, knowing full well that you know, you're hoping to have it funded through the community, goes against the criteria of ARPA. But I also think that it's a little bit cart before the horse thing, that we don't have it yet. I think there are people in this town who would come forward, residents, teachers, like I say, robotics, you know, people who now work with young and adults, not just the kids, that we'd be able to have someone there to be an innovation specialist or whatever, that I'd like to see the space ready to go, you know, have the things that it needs to accommodate people coming in. And I think some of the help to staff, if you will, or whatever, would either come with the people who are the kids who would be using it. I think they would rise from the residents to do things there. That's a personal opinion, but I do think 190,000 of this is asking the, you know, you're basically asking us to put this in the budget forever.
Well, I mean, you know, I think that we need professional people to run the library.
You know Robotics and Beyond?
Well,
do you know Paul Chayka?
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
who
he's a
they
pretty
are.
professional person.
Yeah, but I'm saying this is a separate space in the community, and we could work with people like that, you know.
But you wouldn't allow people to come in from the community and use the space?
Of course we would.
Right, okay. So I guess I'm just saying is that I think it's a little too soon to start asking for $190,000 that would have to stay in the budget. That's just me, so. But you don't have to defend it, I'm just saying how I feel about it.
Sure.
So my question is, we're about to work on a budget, right, coming up, and have you thought about how you're going to budget for the upcoming year with a new library online? And are you already anticipating that you're going to need more people? Are we going to be seeing a budget that's going to reflect that? And I'm thinking we may be able, because of the timing all of this too, we may not use this money for it. We may be hearing a very legitimate request for a change in budget for the library because it's a new library.
And,
So,
yeah, and that is one of the reasons that I'm really encouraging people to come and take a look at the space and to understand, you know, what is there and what is the potential for, you know, for it, and understanding that, you know, we have new departments now. We have an all-new teen department. We never had a department for teens before. They were kind of jammed into a, you know, a hallway by the elevator. And I have a terrific librarian, Amy Birkin, who has been reaching out to teens and working with them in really interesting and different ways, and also working with the youth agency. And I think we can all have a role in this. And so I think you need to come and take a look and understand what's going on. And yes, we are going to need to staff the library.
And I think we're going to hear that from you in the next budget conversation, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think that would be a more appropriate time to talk about
I
putting
agree.
more money in the library.
Yeah.
You're especially staffing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Staff, I have no qualms, you know, I
Sure.
spend a lot of my time at the library. So I don't have any hesitancy that there's, you know, really good things to be done. And I understand the furniture need, and I think the staffing just belongs in the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's
I
contained
think,
within
yeah,
the budget.
Yeah, then we see the whole
Continuing,
picture.
right,
Yeah,
right.
at one time, and I
Right,
think that's,
right.
yeah. But I would echo your request. I did take advantage
You
of your
did take the
tour. and
tour.
It's been a few months now, but it is awesome.
Yeah.
Sal?
Yeah, so,
Yes.
so all the things that you said sounds wonderful to me, to be honest with you. If you think that $273,000 is gonna be enough, because to be honest with you, we just mentioned all the things. If I went to my boss and I said, I need all of that, he would tell me, multiply it by 10 and come back to me, I don't know, Monday or something like this. If you can do it, all that stuff with God bless America and God bless you, what you guys are doing. Because that's what I was thinking, because when you were talking what you want to do is that my mind works in more of a science way. So if we can turn into all the things that you mentioned into like an incubator for
Yes.
the young people, and so the library, and that's just saying, could be like a venture capitalist for the new and upcoming talents. With all the things that you just said, we're going to be doing that. To me, it's not brainer.
Yeah. And also for young people, yes, very important, but also an incubator for entrepreneurs and, you know, and for adults. I think it's a great place for adults to have an opportunity to see and discover new ideas.
If that's what we're going to do.
That's the plan.
Any other questions for Laura? Thank you, Laura.
Okay.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you very much.
Katie, can we do I know the firemen have been waiting.
Yes,
Can we-
I think so.
can we-
I think so. Let's jump right from,
Yeah, I don't need another haircut from him.
let's move from the library. Move my paperwork out of the way. Okay, Water Witch Fire Department, item 5. They'd like, asking for an adjustment from what we already approved for them, because there's been some pricing changes on the boat, as I recall, and also on the airbags.
This is in your packets.
Right, and so you're requesting that we increase from the $71,332 to $93,479, a difference of $22,147, which you detail for us. Is that correct, sir?
Yes. The airbag system, there was a couple when I sent the information to the mayor. There was one set for just the airbags, which was like $7,200. Need controllers and equipment to use the airbags, so that's an additional $10,000, so that's why the $17,000.
Right.
And then the boat pricing was good, better, best, and we're looking for the best. And we've actually, been looking at some other boats and stuff that are right in that price range. That are one Kent just got. That'll be probably the best boat for us, between the river and the lake. So that was where the adjustments were.
I'd like to ask you a question, Chief.
Please.
Same question I asked the Lake Illinois people or the Candlewood Lake Authority, anybody who's going to buy a boat. So is the boat that you're looking at purchasing something that's been tested and you have verification and it's got history with it, so you know this is gonna last?
All the boats that we buy, they have to have a plaque in there with the Coast Guard. They're Coast Guard approved and all that, so.
Good enough for the Coast Guard? Good
Yeah,
enough for me?
and the one that we're actually looking at will be a longer life boat. We currently have a Zodiac, which is about 18 years old now, and we fill it up every couple days with a hand pump.
Yeah.
We fill it up with a compressor and whatever, but
Right.
this new one is actually a solid polyurethane, so there's no leaks in it,
Great.
whatever.
Okay.
The dive team that we work a lot with, one of the divers actually sells the boat, has sold a few of them in the area. Kent just bought one. As you know, Kent doesn't have any lakes, but they have a river with a lot of rocks, and they were very confident in this, of not damaging it. So.
Thank you.
So this is a very transportable light boat, so there's.
Yeah, it's a 15.
Like a transportation.
The current one we have is 14. The one that we have is a 15-footer. If you see, if you've been watching newspapers, Canada has this big, double engine boat. Danbury just bought one, which is now back at the shop because they've had some major problems with it. Sherman has a boat that, is quite larger, but we're still looking at the thing of, we're on the lake, we're on the river.
Right.
Last summer, I believe, while we were out on a possible water incident on Kenwood Lake, we actually had a call for a incident on the river, which we dispatched Brookfield Police Department because they were there standing by. So there was an incident where we had the two boats, two incidents going on at once.
I know the Zodiac would be very instrumental to your operation when we have the unfortunate incidents at the Houstonic River.
Yeah.
Both up in Gaylordsville and here at the dam.
Yeah.
That would
And
be
again, we've
something.
had very few incidents above the dam, but with the smaller boats, we can get that in there. We can launch just north of the dam off of West Street, almost across from the sewer plant. There's an old makeshift ramp in there, so.
So we've already approved the 71,000, and we're just adding in here your 22,147.
We did a low informational overload with the mayor.
Okay.
A little bit of a miscommunication.
Well, we wanted to show, again, like I said, the airbags are gonna be something that we.
Well, I appreciate that you abridged it for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
I fully support it.
And I just want to thank everybody on for the town council and the mayor especially. As of January, I will no longer be chief. Going into a soft retirement and enjoy life a little bit. So I just want to thank everybody for their support.
Really?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness.
You still giving haircuts?
Oh yeah, I'll still do haircuts. I'll still be doing calls and stuff. So now I can go in and actually, kick my little guy's butt and get him into the fires and stuff. So.
All right. Well, we appreciate your service.
No, and I appreciate everything that you guys have done for us.
Yep.
Good for you. Good
Don't
for
forget
you.
Light Parade.
Thanks, Chief.
Absolutely.
Hit the road. We got about 150, 200 cars.
Really?
I haven't talked to the police chief yet, but it could be a little crazy.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so that was item 5. Now we'll look at D2, Lover's Leap Bridge, $150,000. Mayor?
And to the council, I spoke with former State Representative Jeannie Garvey, who's instrumental in setting up Lover's Leap State Park. But she wanted to inform me that the bridge actually is the town of New Milford's responsibility.
Yep.
So as we know, there's upkeep on any bridges, as we've seen, and I think this would be a very good use of the funds, obviously, because people, especially during COVID, we had quite a big use of our parks, where people can go out and socially distant if needed, but enjoy that beautiful park. But also the town of New Milford is responsible for the upkeep of that bridge.
So we're responsible for all the maintenance on it? Do we have any liability for anything that happens on it?
Well, yeah.
Yes. So
Even though it's a state park?
Yeah.
But the bridge is
But
ours.
the bridge is the town of New Milford.
Right. So moving from there, I'll just move right into 3.
Just Thomas had a
Oh, I'm sorry, Alex.
When's the last time someone actually inspected or maintained? the
Great
bridge?
question. I'm gonna say probably 20 years. So I've asked the DPW to go in and take a look at it.
Who cuts the locks off?
Just a sec. Oh, I don't know. But wait, when was it actually finished
Yeah.
with the rehab? Was-
I would say it was probably
Was it 20?
around, I'd say around that time.
Oh,
I'd say.
time flies, okay. So
I'll
that's
get
probably
the
when it was
exact date, but it was
inspected.
around
The
there.
last 20 years have gone very fast.
Yes, they
You know, it's non-vehicle carrying, so it
It
receives
hasn't
few,
been right for a long time, but.
right. And so thus it's inspected at a much different, process than the ones where we're driving over. But I was gonna say, that moves us to the Boardman Bridge, which the amount is $125,000, and therein lies an answer to your question, that yes, the town owns that bridge.
I know the town owns Boardman Bridge.
Yeah, so as it deteriorates, we either do something to mediate that, or we're gonna have to do something to clean it up out of the river.
Right.
So my thoughts
So-
part for Boardman Bridge is part of that money to do an assessment. That was done several years ago. I think it was like a $3 million price tag, somewhere around there, right? Kevin?
It was a little bit more than that, and it was probably 2, 4, 6, 8, maybe 10 more years.
But now they have the new nanotechnology paints
Yes.
that they can put on
Big
there.
difference.
So, but at some point, I mean, it is, it crosses the Housatonic.
Yes.
It's sitting there, so I think we need to really decide as a body, what are we gonna do?
Because it's going to deteriorate to the point where we will be tasked with cleaning up pieces of it, and we all know that the Housatonic's
Yeah.
got a bad reputation
Hillary?
anyway.
I guess this, I'll just, for all of these are sort of infrastructure. My understanding was the money was, I mean, one of my fears is that there's this talk of you have to pay back anything that isn't approved. Is that still valid? So, just trying to be really fiscally responsible and look really, really down at the core of each ask and make sure that we're not approving anything that might have to be paid back.
So great.
My question is this the full list of, like, how are you presenting these to us? Like,
So what
do you have
happens is
them-
we get requests
Mhm.
from department heads, and as those requests are coming in, then I'm bringing those to the council. And we're bringing those in small chunks so that we can review those, and then it goes through a process. So the ones that get approved by town council, per our auditors, right, Greg? When we were gonna do this, so the town council would approve those, and Board of Finance takes a look, and then it goes to a town meeting. So we completely, actually we go above and beyond the compliance that's required. To answer your question concerning infrastructure, part of the ARP funds that is allowed is there is a denominator of a 4% taxable revenue loss, they say. So for instance, the town of Milford has a budget of $105 million. They give you a 4% escalation on what the 105 would be. You can add on an additional 4%. If you're below that number, you can then use the ARPA funds for the infrastructure.
Okay.
Correct, Greg?
Yeah.
When we spoke to our auditor, because we want to make sure we're really compliant, they were telling us that these are how we can use these funds. So that's how we're able to use these funds. Also, before we make any kind of appropriation as well, we also ask the auditor as well, is this still in the compliance? So that's kind of, we want to make sure that exactly we're saying, that there would be no availability to claw back any funding.
That makes sense. I guess it's hard to make the decision not knowing what's coming. It's like you take 3 kids to the toy store and you say, we have $100. First kid brings back a $50 Lego set, second kid brings back a $50, and then the third
Sure.
kid comes and says, I broke my leg. So we don't know what's coming in the next
We're
batch.
trying,
There you go.
we're trying to.
So I guess
I can
that's
tell you
what-
right now, it's Mary Jane added one. I can tell you right now,
Yeah.
before, this was during today, that's the veterans. So we have the roof at the VFW. It needs major, major repair. And the VFW there, obviously, houses our veterans. It's very veteran-centric. You also have the American Legion. And they
Affected
do a
by
lot of
COVID.
things with our veterans here in New Milford. So I would also request that we also fund that as well.
But I guess my point is, why wouldn't we hold off on approval till we have the full list in front of us, where it's closed?
Because it would
almost?
waste time.
Well, we have time because most towns haven't even started
But
funding.
we did. Our clock is ticking.
I think
That's the point.
we don't even get our second batch until June, right? So the first batch is in the
Be in the
bank, but
spring.
I think in June we get the second batch. So I think that we're certainly not behind the clock. So it would behoove us to sort of look at the whole list, understand what all the implications are, what the potential recurring costs are, and then we can make sort of good decisions on.
Well, we've already passed through and.
Right, we've
a lot.
two-thirds.
So, right, and I just say that now that we're at these bridges, as an example, they really can't wait. Maybe one could, but we really have to do something.
And then to pose your hypothesis, my question back to the council would be, is these monies were sent by President Biden and Congress to put the money to work right away to help bring the town out of COVID. So to me, the more time we waste, the more opportunity that we waste for the
infrastructure is
people.
coming. We're getting a whole bunch of infrastructure
Oh, I
money,
don't
which
know.
this could fall right into.
You know, the other way to look at this too, Hillary, is, and we've all seen this happen, first come, first served. This money could be used, something else could come up, okay? And the fact that other towns are just starting to think about it is really moot, as far as I'm concerned, but we took the bull by the horns, so to speak. We asked all the department heads, the mayor's been meeting with people for ages, and these are the things that have come forward. So, you know, as I said, it goes from us, goes to the Board of Finance, comes back, there's town meetings, so it's open for all of the residents and everyone
And the thing I'm really proud of with the council is this is a wide swath of things we're doing. We're doing mental health.
Bridges.
We're doing infrastructure. We're doing police and safety. We're helping the fire departments.
Libraries.
Public safety.
But
We're
Health department.
But I guess what I'm saying is if we knew, you know, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, but we're doing mental health, but what are we doing for mental health exactly? So if we have a list, you know, I think we're
The
only
youth
doing.
agency is hiring counselors
Right,
to
so
talk.
two counselors in the youth agency.
And a
then we're
program that
having-
they've already started, that they've already outlined. I mean,
So
that isn't
my
in
question
here.
is that enough, looking at the whole picture of what we have and?
We also have social
It's not our job,
services,
it's not our job
position
to
approved.
second guess department heads.
No. I'm
And
not
that's what
saying
the
that.
department heads have brought, right, Mayor? So we don't presume to know more. Sometimes if there's something obvious that they're being very budgetary minded, and we might say, let's put it, we did that with the nonprofits, Mary Jane brought up that, and the Hope Fund and things like that. But it's not our job to tell them how much money they should put in there.
Yeah, I guess the way I'm looking at it is our department heads are the experts in the various groups of the town. They've been giving us their priorities, and I think probably in order of priority. And I don't want to speak for them, but that's my sense of it. And again, doing it in smaller batches, I think at least helps me understand each request better than if we had to get this whole one long list and put it through in, I hate to use the term omnibus fashion because I hate those things, but that sort of thing. So I like this approach myself.
I think personally that some of the funds that we have approved, and I understand your question, you basically, why don't we get a bulk and go after that and have them funding? The only thing is, one of the things from the infrastructure point of view is that inflation can eat it up 6 months from now. What we're gonna do that, today is 6.8 officially. I think it's about 11, 12. 6 months, 2, 3, whatever months from now, it could be 15. What we're gonna do then? At least right now, as the things coming, and they're coming with the proposal. It's not, we didn't come up with this stuff. People came with the needs.
Yeah.
They're saying this is what we need, A, B, and C. Okay, it's fine, this is the money. And then, and this is today, and we'll approve it, right? 10 months from now, inflation is gonna possibly eat at least 15-20% of that money.
That's a really good point. That $42,000
Because
vote could be 58.
The inflation is insane in this country at this
you're
point.
That's right.
I will disagree with the fact about questioning department heads. I think that's that's what we do as a council. We question every dollar spent in every department. But on a side note, there are several of us that are brand new to the council.
This is your second run here. You're not that brand new.
It's been a long time. But perhaps we can get a list of what's been approved.
Absolutely.
For those of us who were new this
I will
election.
Absolutely.
So we have an idea of, I have no idea where these monies have been allocated beyond what is in front of us tonight. No idea. I don't
The
get
total
look
so
up
far that, is how much?
So, well, I'll answer that, but
Oh.
Councilwoman Thomas had a
Can I
question.
go back to the bridges?
But it's just a suggestion, please.
No, I agree. There are three of us in that boat who need to be brought up to speed with where we're at. But the bridges, where did the numbers come from and what exactly is it for?
So the numbers would be for first starting with Loversley Bridge. That'd be money for a needs assessment and then any kind of small capital. The same would be for Boardman Bridge. This would just be doing the initial analysis, have a structural engineer come in, look at it, then give us an assessment of what those needs will be. It's going to be way more of a bigger ask, obviously, for Boardman than it would be for Lover's Leap. But Lover's Leap, people are actually walking across that every day.
Right. So DPW's in charge of both?
I've asked Jack, well, Boardman really nobody, because nobody walks on that.
Right.
But Jack Healy, we tasked him about 6 or 8 months ago to take a look at it and come up with somewhat of an assessment.
Okay.
And I just asked Jack the other day, I'm like, I became aware really that the town is responsible for the upkeep on the bridge. Can you guys kind of take a look at it and see what it is? And then we'll have to bring a structural engineer in to give us a true cost and bring that back to the council.
Okay, so to these two items, this goes back to what I asked for at our organizational meeting about having more information ahead of time. If we had had a little bit of an idea of what that 125 means, what that 150 means, where it came from, what you presented, but if it were in writing,
But that means somebody would have to write up every single thing, Alex. Come on. You can't go back
I think it's
forever.
important that we have as much information as possible so that we can have intelligent conversations, because you've already gone through the process. You know what it is you want to tell us, but we're waiting for you to say it at the meeting. I don't think that's necessary if we could have it in advance, because you came up with the numbers, you knew what it was going to be.
No.
But it would be very helpful for us,
You don't
I
know.
think, if we had more information in advance so that we could speak intelligently as a group about what it is, why it should, why it shouldn't, what it's all about, and that's all I'm asking for. And I don't need a response. I don't need a response, I just am asking.
Well, I'm going to say something. Don't take this the wrong way, as we said to Walter earlier, but you have an agenda in front of you. If you don't see anything attached, as we've had for some people, such as the boat, where they could define it, you can ask how you can find out what that's about. But if you're asking that the mayor define every single thing here, that's not practical, number one. It's not practical use of his time, I can say that. But part of what our job here is, during these meetings, is to ask the things that you're asking, okay? And when you are told that it's 150, that's what our DPW director came up with, 125 for Boardman is based a little bit on a thing that was done maybe more than 10 years ago, plus what the going rate for getting someone, as a structural engineer, to come and look at it. That's how that comes about. You have to have some acceptance of the fact that these numbers aren't pulled out of the air. You know, this is a government. If you don't have that faith in the mayor and the council people who are still here after other years of being here, then you need to come in and have a chat with him aside from this meeting. Because we can't go through every single thing and dissect it at this meeting. Because right now, it's after 9:30. We've had
That's
enough
what we are.
presentations come up to us. Pardon?
We've been dissecting everything.
You can dissect it, but you're saying you want something ahead of time. That would mean that he'd have to sit and write every single thing up. We have information from every department who brings things to us, and rightly so they do it, and rightly so we ask all the questions we want to ask. These are not departmental. These are infrastructure things. Now, you heard from Lorna, she's department, but on these two things that you're asking, I don't know what on earth we could give you. You could find, I guess you could go back through the records and look at the minutes of the meetings when we talked about the Boardman Bridge 10 years ago.
Well, I'm not going to debate the issue, I'm putting my request in, that's all.
Request for what, though?
More information prior to, so that we
Okay.
have an idea
Look,
where
we're
these
gonna vote
numbers
on
are
this.
coming from.
Okay.
Because you're asking us to make decisions about how to spend this money.
Yep,
That's
and
all.
I think, yes, we are. Definitely we are. And there's a motion that'll be made to vote on these items that then would go forward, so they'd go forward to the Board of
Right.
Finance, et cetera. You know the process.
And these are just for discussion, this list tonight, not for.
That's right, there's no action. that
Yeah.
can-
We can
This is
discuss,
just for
that's
the
absolutely
discussion.
right. But that's what we're doing, is we're discussing it because then they're gonna go forward
Right,
and
I
be
understand
taken
the
care of.
process, Katie.
Okay.
I have a question. So have you had any communication from the state about the infrastructure bill that has been passed? And there's X number of dollars coming into the state. Is it going to be just
So what we've been
main
told.
highways or bridges?
Yeah, what we've been
or-
told is that funding, and this is just, it's just an aside, they can't guarantee it obviously, but just talk, that money would be used for state projects.
Okay,
And
so not
regional
for,
projects, so for instance,
roads.
I-95, I-84, trains, would be
Trains are
used
big.
for those type of things, and it wouldn't come down to,
The local town?
Correct.
It's not going to come to the local town?
Not an
Um,
official
So best case, it might be a Route 7 project or something.
right.
Like a state.
84 or whatever.
Nothing for that.
Probably bigger.
You know, my concern about the Boardman Bridges, I don't know when's the last time the committee has even met? Has it been?
We can't, we haven't, because
Yeah.
we needed to have it reassessed.
What, the committee or?
No,
No,
the,
good.
what work is needed to be done to bring it into any usable, there's two ways to look at it. It could either be assessed as to how to bring it forward so people could stand on it, let's just start with that, or
Take it down.
take it apart.
Well,
Right.
my concern is that if it does fall in the river, it's going to be an environmental
Of course,
hazard.
right.
And we're
And
gonna-
removing
if
it, doing work on it,
gonna be
and
huge.
removing it requires lots and lots of precautions and things. Years ago, when it was looked at, it was, needed to be completely encapsulated in order to sandblast the paint. Now, they don't have to do that anymore. I mean, there's certain things that might have to be rubbed off, but that's what we're saying. There's a lot new technology, a lot of new things that we could do. But this is just to see from a structural point of view, not structural for a car, but for a person, is it worth it? Or is it better to just take it down?
And this type of funding, we know that we're gonna have to do this. I mean, we know it's gonna be an environmental impact if we don't do anything. What's the cost? So to me, if we can use, as I said before, if we can use these funds, rather than hit the taxpayer again for things and get the net benefit from it, it's a win-win for everybody.
So we're positive that we can use these funds? Absolutely positive.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other?
Oh, well, the item number 4, which is really the crux of the COVID part of this whole ARPA, is to the town's response to COVID, is $500,000.
So I'd ask that we put that money aside, as it was just talked about here prior, as we don't know what's going on with COVID. We don't know about the variants. There's a lot in given. Do we continue on with the vaccine clinics right now? Currently, they are being subsidized by the federal and state government, but who's to say 4 months from now, 5 months from now, they don't subsidize them anymore, or we have a new issue. I think it behooves us to put the money just aside as a reserve in case we need it for COVID.
So, Mayor, by putting it aside in an account for the purposes of ARPA funds, do they consider that spent? Or do we then have to remove it from that account for it to be spent in 2 years?
There's a,
Right?
Actually, the funds have to be expended by 2026. They have
Right.
to be
4 years.
earmarked by 2024 for purpose.
Right.
So,
Okay, encumbered or directed out what the money's going to be used for. So that $500,000, if you say it's gonna be for PPE or any type of COVID prevention program or additional, vaccine, you need to identify that.
okay, thank you.
What I'm doing with this, for your knowledge, is I'm creating a project code for each and every one of these projects, so they can be tracked by project code.
Plus, there are
It's all
reports
being
that are
spent
done
out
on
of
every
the grant
single
fund.
bit of it as we go. Okay, so the total that we've come up with during this discussion is, and we want to add number 6. Mary Jane, you want to discuss the substance abuse?
Yeah, so I think Mr. Marcy brought up some really good points about establishing like a safe harbor for those that are, coming right out of right out of the ER. They've been Narcaned, and there's no place to go. So I think we need to start to think about how we're going to take care of these people, obviously on a very temporary basis. But I think if we worked with the hospital and Justin Comer to see what we could possibly come up with, some kind of an idea for, all we need is, a couple of rooms somewhere, and we would have to have, personnel that would, volunteers or whatever on call possibly to, hang on to this person until we can get them into a safe place, because this is where we're losing people.
Well, we do have we actually have 4 sober houses. The third one is open up, and there's women now they have a section for women. His idea of subsidy, because that's a for-profit. Those people are paying to be there.
At the sober house. So we have people that can't pay. And what are we doing with them?
There's subsidies for it.
I know, but we need someplace to put them immediately, until they can get into a detox facility.
I think Mary Jane made a really good suggestion. I'll reach out to Dr. K.
Ask if the hospital.
And ask about New Vance and see what their things. We'll ask Justin to come.
Yeah, I just always
as
wonder,
well,
you work
and we'll
there.
see like what resources are available, then what opportunities can be as well.
And with some of the COVID money, it would at least, we could get something started and see how it's going to go.
What is I'll call it a regulation, that they have to have them leave the hospital once they're detoxed to the point that they can.
If they're Narcaned, you mean? Once they're Narcaned and they're awake,
right.
They cannot be detained unless they are suicidal. If they express any ideation of suicide, then that's a whole different ballgame. But for somebody who comes in that was just, at a party and,
But if they
overdose.
don't want to leave, my understanding is that there's no place for them. There's no
there's no place for them to
classification
go,
for them,
We're
right?
not allowed
They're
to
out.
keep them.
You're out.
Yeah,
But
so.
how is this COVID related? I mean, I understand what you're
It's
saying.
related to
I'm not in
COVID
favor,
because
but how
of
is it
stress
part
of COVID.
The stress of COVID, a lot more
Just like the
people
mental
are
health for the kids.
overdosing as a result of COVID.
So
Addiction
we're
is
gonna,
up.
we're gonna figure out a direct correlation to COVID and substance abuse?
There
We
is.
don't have to.
It's on the rise.
I'm just saying.
It's there already.
And that's
Yeah.
going to pass, the auditors and the folks that are going to give us the go-ahead to take this money, or to allocate this money. I think that's one area that I think we should get a legal opinion on.
Well,
I mean,
I think the
I'm
legal
not
opinion's
argumentative
there
on
already.
this, I understand what you're saying.
Well,
But
you get the legal,
let's-
get it. I don't care.
Let's just make sure
Do
that
it.
it's proper and legal
Well,
to do it.
For example, it's a
It's
little bit,
mental
there's more of a
health.
corollary with mental health and addiction than, a boat for a fire department and COVID. So that, what I mean, it's much more of an easy leap to see how addiction is on the rise. People are overdosing and suicides are up because of depression, isolation, lack of schools, all of these reasons. So, but legal opinion, we should get it
It's
for
just,
sure.
listen, if it's on the list and it's approvable, I have no problem with it.
Right, exactly.
I'm just saying,
So,
we were
I'm
talking
not-
before about making sure that everything we were
Right.
approving was approvable.
Totally. We're not
Right.
asking for something to be approved that's not going to be approved. So, but it's a suggestion.
No,
I'm
Obviously,
really
it's a good
putting it
suggestion.
out there as a suggestion.
Excellent.
We'll get a hold of
This
this. We'll get
this
a,
is a place to.
But I think it's something to look at, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
we'll get a hold of Dr. K, Justin.
Yep.
And there is an opportunity, I think, after talking to them, that the sober houses that exist, there is an opportunity to discuss with them as well, that they may be able to, as you say, the people who want to stay, maybe, they don't want to go back out. Those are the people that would be primed to be maybe moved into someplace like
And-
that.
Any other,
Mary Jane, what would your category be for this?
Safe haven, safe
Safe
harbor.
Safe harbor.
Item number 6.
Thank you.
and Katie, is that on the agenda, is that the last part of the ARP?
Yes, that's the
So-
6th item.
I would like to ask if we could suspend the rules and add another item, so we can then talk about it
So
at the next
moved.
meeting as well.
So moved.
And
Need a
that will
second?
be.
Can I get a second?
Second?
Got a
Thank you.
second, you need
Thank you.
two-thirds.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
I know.
The one would be for veterans,
Yes.
and that will be for the roof at,
The Legion
the
and the
Lead-
VFW?
No, the roof of the VFW, and then also some funding for veteran services at both the American Legion and at the VFW. I will bring those numbers back. I'll ask to both Commanders McBride and Commander Delancey, and I'll bring that so the council can look at that at the next
All
meeting.
right, so I'll
But
add
just
it
so we
as
have
number
that.
7 as a
Yep.
to be advised. Is that agreeable to everybody?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, so we'll move to item E, which is an update, excuse me, 9E, an update on the sale of cannabis in the town of New Milford.
Attorney Towers, sir.
I'm John Tower, for those of you who don't know me. Quickly, I did speak to Randy DeBella about this. He has reviewed this public act, which is voluminous. I have not. But basically, as I understand it, the sale of cannabis in this town will be approved under this statute unless there is a referendum. Now, the referendum that Randy told me that you guys were going to consider was going to be through your authority under the charter. And under the charter, of course, you have the ability to call special town meetings and then remove a special town meeting to a referendum. I want you to know quickly that the statute speaks to a specific kind of referendum. It's one that they want to see at the time of a regular election, number one. And number two, it has to comply with another statute, which is 9-369, and that is the same type of referendum when you, for example, have a referendum to modify the state constitution. And that's only at one that is at a normal, a regular election where either state and municipal officials are elected. So if you set up a, let's say, a special town meeting and then remove it to a referendum, I don't think that's going to meet the criteria. I don't think it's going to mesh with a normal state election.
And
I
that's
think
the only way
the
to
policy,
avoid
the
it?
policy of doing it is to encourage a broad participation.
Right.
To have as many electors as possible to weigh in on the question of whether you're going to prohibit cannabis sale in your
So
town.
just to be clear, the referendum which must occur under 9-369, which must occur at the time of a regular or a statewide election, is the way to not have
Permit.
cannabis permitted in our town.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it's automatically.
Yeah,
That's right.
I have to be clear, Randy represented to me that the default would be to permit
Yes.
the sale of
Right.
cannabis in your town.
So that's the simple way to put it.
And the way to prohibit would be by way of this procedure of a referendum, if it went that way.
And that referendum would not be our normal May budget referendum, would have to be
No, separate.
during a separate election.
Next November.
And just for the edification of the council, the legalization of cannabis takes effect July 1, correct?
Yep, I believe that's true.
Right.
Right.
And then Randy did say there have been towns that have used a non-electoral cycle referendum to take a vote like this, and he said that it has not been tested.
Right.
So you're on murky legal water.
Hasn't been thrown out.
Hasn't
yet.
been tested.
That's, so that,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
And also, we've been waiting for zoning to opine on what they are going to do.
And
Attorney
Randy
General.
reported to me that the zoning enforcement officer reported to him that the zoning commission is going to allow, her understanding was that it would allow the sale of cannabis anywhere that medical marijuana is offered through retail sales. So in the same zoning rule would apply.
Okay.
Joe?
Looks like we don't have much of an option here, tragically. Because I'm going to put it on record, I'd be voting against allowing the sale of cannabis. The state of Connecticut allows certain vices, alcohol, now brand new gambling, and then cannabis. What do we have left? Prostitution? Is that the only vice left that the state hasn't put forward? I mean, and this, I'm against legalization of it, but I can't help that. I mean, it is a mind-altering substance, and mainly by our youth who
are out driving in cars.
Well, it's not the youth.
Well, you know, that's what I hear now. It's maybe not them as much as some of the others.
There's a lot of adults that smoke marijuana.
It's, you know, it's a tragic, to me, statement on our society, but with that, I don't think we have a choice, Mr. Tower.
Sal?
So I did some digging on this marijuana stuff. You can have one store per 10,000 people, which means the most we can have in Connecticut, I mean New Milford, Connecticut, is 2 stores. Whatever store, I don't even know what the word is. I don't know, something. Now, there's a coalition right now in Connecticut going on with the towns that are saying we're not gonna have publicly right now, before this whole takes effect in March, April next year. Newtown said they're not gonna have anything like this in their town. Darien, I don't remember correctly, Greenwich said they're not gonna have anything like this. So we do, and they're on the record, you can go and research them already. I'm like Joe, I'm against cannabis all over the place. I don't think we have enough problems to deal with, we don't need another problem. And again, there is a precedence of towns publicly saying there will be no marijuana or cannabis stores in their towns already. Greenwich and Newtown, I know for sure. I think there's 2 or 3 more that I saw, but there's a coalition of towns going on right now. So I don't think we have no option. I think we have quite a bit of options, because the way they set up the law is basically, in Governor Lamont's words, it was, okay, I promised my voters, I don't know whom, he didn't promise that to me, to pass the marijuana into the state. And then he established those 10 districts. So there's 10 districts in Connecticut that will be voting on who can or who cannot have the marijuana store in it. And one of the districts will be Danbury, for instance. But anyway, we have options. We don't need cannabis. Whatever we can do, just don't vote for it. I won't.
So, a couple things. I mean, I have a lot of concerns about it too. I have a lot of concerns about alcohol and drunk drivers, and you going to a party and having a couple drinks and jumping in your car and not being quite all there. So, and we know that happens a lot. But I am concerned with the marijuana with kids, with, you know, everything looking like candy or cookies and stuff like that. And that, you know, in Colorado's had a very big problem with kids overdosing. But here's the other big problem that's going on right now. On the black market, marijuana is being laced with fentanyl. It's totally deadly. And if somebody goes on the street in New Milford and buys some marijuana from somebody, and there's no way to actually say this is totally clean, no matter what the person tells you, because they're trying to sell their product, the marijuana could be laced with fentanyl, and it's deadly. It's absolutely deadly. We're going to be seeing a lot more. It's happening more. It's in the state of Connecticut already. And I think people would be a lot safer.
So we're going to resolve the problem of selling legal marijuana. We want to make sure then that the stuff they're buying is not going to
Well, wouldn't you, if you smoked marijuana, wouldn't you rather buy it from somebody at least that you know that it's controlled and it's clean and it
two wrong
doesn't
things
have.
Doesn't make right. This is not logical, and I completely disagree. Because the next argument I'm hearing when I'm listening or talking to the people is that they're going to the prohibition times. Absolutely had nothing to do with this. Two wrong things don't make one right. Period.
Well,
so
I'm just telling you what is going on out on the black. I don't smoke either.
Okay, good.
So I have no interest in it.
So you have
but this is what's going on out on the black market. It's laced.
The black market is created by who? You and me?
No, that has nothing to do with it. Like, that's a ridiculous.
To do with this because we're blamed for
like off the mark here.
I have a question. I'm not sure who to ask this question of, but so if we by default could turn into, I mean, there are towns in our state who would love to have as many stores as they could possibly fit in their main street. Anyway, so who determines? I mean, our town, we'd have to have a town meeting. We have town meetings about everything. We'd have some sort of town meeting about this, right?
Yes.
Correct.
So we could sit here all night and talk about the ins and outs of it.
I just wanted to update the council as to
Yeah,
the process.
so it'll ultimately come up to the residents to make their decision like they do on other things. And if it's very important,
Now,
somewhat
we've-
important,
We've
whatever.
tasked Randy, and he's gonna come back and give it to us, the verbiage for an ordinance that makes it prohibited
To smoke it.
to smoke it on a town
Right.
property.
I thought we already did that.
Well, we're waiting for his verbiage to come
Okay.
back, and then we can
Right.
set the date for.
So we
for
know that the ZEO has said that the zoning that is now currently there for medical marijuana dispensary is the same zoning regulation that would cover a point of sale.
And do we know what that zoning is?
Retail sale.
of
They're
retail,
gonna,
right.
they're gonna give us all that verbiage.
Distances and all
They
of
will,
that,
okay.
right. So there's two things that we already have settled on, so that's, a tiny step, but I don't think we should,
So what do we do with F?
well, what we do,
Do we set this town meeting, or do we?
I would table it.
I think
My
definitely.
suggestion.
I'd make a
After
motion
hearing
to
from Attorney
table
Tao.
F until,
Right.
Absolutely.
Until we get more clarity and maybe more opinion. Because we go to a special town meeting and you get a group of people that show up that are in favor of it, they can swing this vote, correct? Is it the town
that's the
meeting?
case?
Yeah, but it may not even be meaningful, so we.
That's
I think
right.
to get,
Right.
I think to get more
Is there a
clarity.
second on the
Yeah, no, I
motion?
agree.
let's, I'm gonna move that we table this till our second meeting in January,
I second.
which is the 17th?
No,
No,
the second would be the
24th.
24th.
the 24th, excuse me. That's my
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Item number 10, I'd like to move to appropriate $25,000.
Nope. Sorry, Katie. That was supposed to be an update because we already appropriated that funding.
Thought so,
Yeah.
okay.
We already appropriated it.
So there's an update on item 10, that we've appropriated $25,000 from the
So
contingency
speaking,
fund. Thought it looked a little familiar.
So speaking with Chief Ceruto today, this additional funding for traffic enforcement, for the last 2 weeks, they have pulled over 209 vehicles. Within those, a couple of things. One was they were able to pull over a car going on Kennewood Lake Road North at 70 miles an hour. So they pulled over that vehicle. A similar over 70 miles an hour at Route 7. They also pulled over an individual that had warrants out of state. They were able to intercede with that. And also, they've pulled over some other ones that had some ancillary issues concerning motor vehicle infractions that they were able to give. So far, it's been very successful. They continue on with this project, and I'll update the council in another 2
Great.
weeks.
Any idea if they've gotten many blowing by school buses, because I hear about that
Oh,
all the
my
time.
God.
Absolutely.
Okay, good,
The worst.
good,
And that's,
Alrighty.
for the record, that's an over $400 ticket when you get it.
Right.
excellent.
Yeah, good.
So I just have a suggestion, possibly.
Yep.
I saw new signage up for watching out for school buses. I wonder if a video update for the general public on what the rules are. Like, do a piece and put it out there on Facebook or whatever, because I think there are
Speak to the
people
police department.
who lost sight of it along the way, and maybe that's another way to,
Absolutely. We did that, Chief Ceruto did that, right when school started again, but we'll push it out again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
because I see it happening. Yeah,
All the
we all
time.
do.
And listen, with all due respect, there are a few places that I've noticed
Oh, my
on
God.
Route 7 that we could avoid some of that if we could get the bus to go around a few of those places and not stop in the middle of Route 7. I can point out one right down near Fast Eddie's
But they're
and the
not
whole
done.
intersection. People coming over the top of that hill while it's green, going highway speed, and then all of a sudden, you see the bus. Now, I personally have said this to the bus company a dozen times in as many years. If they could go around on State Road, I believe it is,
Yep.
and pick the kids up behind the daycare center, which I personally think would be safer overall, but we don't seem to get anywhere with the bus company. So I
They're
hope
having a
this
hard
is
time
something that
finding drivers.
the BOE could, I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult for them to make a right and stop in a safer place than to sit right in the middle of Route 7. But
Have you
this
made
is, this is
yourself-
something we brought up many years, and I hope we can have that discussion come budget time, or that the BOE
Board of
will
Ed,
push this.
bring it up, right,
I mean,
Joe?
we brought it up I don't know how many years I've been sitting here for 12 years. I brought it up every single year.
Well,
You know.
apparently there must be a
And I
reason.
served on Board of Ed, and I will tell you though that there are places that the buses can't go because they're not public roads. So we gotta be, you
And I
know,
think
some
that's
of their
part of the reason
decisions.
there.
State road is a public road.
Is
I
it?
know that. I know. a
That
couple of
little
those
turn
roads.
there.
That little turn is a public road.
All right.
You know, so there's a handful. I'm not trying to be, you know, overly critical of them, but there's a few that could be avoided, not just for the ticket purpose, but for overall safety of the kids and the public.
Right.
I've been in a couple of those where
Okay.
people come to a screeching halt behind me. So.
Item 11, update from Finance Director Greg Gossipow. And we have our supporting documents. Everybody got this, right? Just make sure. Yep.
Good evening all. For the benefit of the new members, my name is Greg Gossipow. I am the Director of Finance. This is the November financial update. After a lengthy search for a comptroller, I have selected Tamara Schriefer for this position. Tamara, you want to come up? Tamara has a breadth and depth of 20-plus years experience in corporate accounting and is intermediate to advanced in Excel as well as various computer programs. She holds a degree from the University of New Haven, and I have no doubt she will be an asset to the town. She's here if you have any questions you'd like to ask. Otherwise, welcome her, and it's a big relief to me to have somebody and not run the shop alone.
How do you spell your last name?
SCHRIEFER.
Well, I welcome you again.
Thank you.
Nice to see you here tonight. Sorry it took so long.
I might make an appointment with you to discuss, I know Olga had administered the Sustainability Fund for COVID relief, and I'm the chair of that, so maybe we could get together and discuss how it's been run in the past, and just to make sure we're all together on that.
As soon as I get my feet in there, yes.
Yes, yeah, it won't be tomorrow.
She's got a lot to learn.
Okay.
From what my short time with her, she's a very quick study. She seems very organized, and it's exactly, you know, the type of individual who I want as second in command. So I expect good things from Tamara.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara.
Sorry to keep you so late.
Appreciate your patience.
All right. Continuing on, I have received the draft audit report from the auditors, and all initial indicators are positive. I'm in the process of tying out the balance sheet, and I hope to certify the audit for publication and release within 2 weeks. Revenues. Revenues are at 53.1% of budget. On a straight line basis, we would expect to be at 42%. Tax collections are at 57.2% of budget overall, with current taxes at 57.7%. Both interest income and stiff interest are running at 36% and 27.8% respectively. Most departments are averaging above the straight line calculation, with the exception of health, aging, and the max. On the expenditure side, expenditures on a cash basis are at 41% of budget. The majority of the salary lines conform to the straight line pattern as expected. I see no issues with expenditures at this point in time, with the exception of tax rebates and refunds, which are at 51.5% expended as of November. In summary, on a cash basis, revenues are at $55,831,891.25, and expenditures are at $40,075,746.34, leaving the town with a positive cash flow of $15,756,144.91.
Chris?
Yes.
Greg, the three departments.
Yep.
You
Health,
expect them to
aging,
come
and the
back in
max.
line?
Mhm. They're below what a straight line revenue pattern would be. Some of them are due to the timing of grants.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there is some seasonality to that to qualify that.
Okay.
But those three, I'm just, the max, I know, Mayor, has been going under some construction.
Yep.
On the obverse of that statement for the max, their expenditures are at 9.1%. So their operations aren't really full force right now. So.
And the tax refunds and that, is that affected by the recent reevaluation, do you think, or what?
That's for appeals. You just approved the tax report.
But it sounds like there's more than normal. Is that because of the reevaluation, do you think, or?
Could be. It could be. I don't know if there's a direct correlation, but certainly this is something that we experience every year in town, whereby, you know, at some point in time we need to reevaluate that and perhaps do a supplemental appropriation to that line item.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Greg?
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
And item number 12.
We need to extend the time for the council.
10:30.
10:30.
And item 13 is off the agenda. So
Correct.
just,
Oh, 13 is off?
yeah, so we have item 12, which is the mayor's update on economic development.
Just very, very quick, speaking with our building inspector last week. The building department received 52 new applications. They did 77 inspections and issued 69 permits. Year to date, they've done 990. They've had 997 applications.
Jeez.
They've inspected 1,263 and done 1,240 permits. They've collected $279,411.56 so far. So they're ahead of projections, even of the busier time last year. They're ahead of last year's, which was a very busy year. Extremely promising. Also, this past last week, met with the Economic Development Commission, and one of the things we're going to be doing down with them, with all the expertise that's within the commission, is we're going to be doing something similar to SCORE, where if you have a small business, you have some questions, kind of see what best practices are. We're going to take a segment of the commission's monthly meeting, and they can come in and talk about it, free of charge. So, want to thank...
And these would be people appropriate for the discipline or whatever they're...
Just want to thank Chairman Frank Wargo and the commission for thinking of that, and I'll have additional updates as the commission moves forward. Economic Development Corporation, as we know through the ARPA funds, we approved all the way through both Town Council, Board of Finance, and the town meeting, the application for business grants. So that now is online. We've had 3 applications already. They'll be going to the corporation for review. And as long as it meets that revenue shortfall, then we'll be helping our small businesses. So we're very excited about that. And for those that are watching, you can go to www.milford.org. You can click on business, and the application is a hyperlink, and you can pull it down or request from the mayor's office for us to send you the application. Tourism-wise, we have that wonderful site, themilfordnow.org. You can go on, and we continue to have more businesses that are opting in to list their business. So we're very excited about that as that continues to grow as well. Continue to see new business development when you are on Still River, right by where the Sonic is. The open space there is going to be, I believe it's well built, which makes bedliners. They're going to put their headquarters there. You've got Garrity Pump, it's a couple doors down. And as you move around towards the roundabout, there's where they've broken some ground there. That's going to be a masonry company. Will be opening up there. If you go down Pickett District, you're going to have Mr. Brucey's business. He's expanding and opening there. Then you have Frank Latsky with his company that does excavation, putting his business, moving that from Washington here to New Milford.
That's right up, farther up on
Yep.
Pickett District, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
On Route 7, you've got the Popeyes franchise with Ben and Jerry's. It's going to be right next to the Dunkin' Donuts. We're also, when you're going, kind of going backwards where the Stop and Shop is, you have that row of stores that are open.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask right now the reason why they're not. People are saying that's just open. Why isn't that being rented? He's got to do a little bit of continued work to get a CO, but in the back, he has commercial rental space that's being absorbed very quickly. So we're excited about that as well. As we all know, or most people know, Diane Clave opened up her bagel shop, which she's doing amazing
great
business there. It's right next to Savings
The
Bank of
Bagel Barn.
Danbury, the Red Barn building there. I happened to go there one Sunday. There was like a waiting line to get in before she opened.
They ran
so-
out.
Yep.
As you were coming
So-
out, I was gonna go in and.
Wish
they
her
were all gone.
much success. Right across the street, we have Mama's Tacos that opened up in replace of the salad place. She's doing very, very well. Yep, we have Al Dente's, which is opened up over here.
Very
And
nice.
replace. So that's exciting to see that opening up as well.
Very nice
And
looking.
Hillary, you had a question?
No, I was gonna wait till you were finished, sorry.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Also, Johanna's is looking to expand in the back space to put a banquet hall back there, seating about 60 people there.
As she-
On 64 Bank Street, my old store many years ago, we have a new eatery coming in that does fresh breads, bakery, also specializes in quiche. That business is moving from Brookfield to New Milford.
And they're calling it 1820?
That's right.
Because that's when Bank Street was.
That's right.
Bank Street.
Absolutely.
It was Wall Street before that, I didn't.
Yes, it was.
Yep.
Yes, it was.
Wall Street.
So we're seeing a lot of growth, and there's also some hopefully in the next few weeks I can announce some other ones that are coming in. Right now they're negotiating on some lease space, which will be some significant jobs as well, creation. So we're very excited about that.
Excellent.
I know it's late, we all want to go. I just wanted to clarify one thing, because I'm new as well. So there's a big difference between the Economic Development Commission and the Economic Development Corporation.
Yes.
Commission is part of municipal government, corporation is a private corporate.
501(c)(3).
So where, is there information on that? Like-
Quasi-government,
Right.
quasi-town.
And so do we
together.
know, like the board, is that all publicly on there?
You
Okay.
can check their minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so they're the ones who are gonna allocate the grant money?
So they're the
From
ones,
the ARPA.
they're the
They
ones
get the
gonna be the
grants.
third-party eyes. So when we talked to our, auditor, one of the things that, the government's gonna wanna see, that there was, independence when it comes to issuing grant funding with this respect. So this entity will be kind of the third party. So it isn't a bureaucrat rubber stamping it and then saying here. It's actually gone through the process where it was reviewed for income loss during COVID, which is the rule for the sustainability for this grant. So they're gonna approve it, opine it, and then they're gonna certify that that was the case. That's our third party. So when we're doing it that way, that's why they're looking at.
Was there any conversation about, hiring a bigger fund, shopping it out to a bigger fund, like,
So we looked at that, there's a cost for that, where
Okay.
where the corporation is doing that for free.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Anything else?
Great news.
Yes, very good news.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody.
Merry Christmas,
Merry
everyone.
Christmas, Happy New Year.
Oh, my goodness, that's right. We won't,